I mean, maybe I'll just cut this from this. Hi, you're with Scott. I'm Super Chuffer. It's midnight. It's always midnight. Richard D. Hall. Manchester Arena attack survivors win case against conspiracy theorist. 2 survivors of the Manchester Arena attack have won their bid to sue a writer who said it was fake. Richard Hall's claims that no one died in the 2017 attack, which killed 22 people at the Ariana Grande concert, was preposterous, a judge said. Judge Richard Davison ruled in favour of Martin and Eve Hibbert, who sued Mr. Hall after he said they were not there. The father and daughter were injured when suicide bomber, etc. Mr. Hibbert, who lives in Chorley, was paralysed from the waist down. Eve suffered a life-changing brain injury, 14 years old. And Mr. Hibbert said Mr. Hall went way too far when he approached Eve and her home. It's unacceptable to bring anxiety and distress to us in this way, and a stand has to be taken. I'm pleased the court saw through his ridiculous assertions. So, Richard D. Hall said that they were likely harmed before the attack, recruited but did not attend. And the judge ruled it's absolutely incorrect to say there's no reliable, verifiable evidence. The contrary is the case. It came down to a CCTV image that Richard D. Hall had not seen, because not all the CCTV was released to the public. But for the trial, the judge saw some CCTV and said, right, that CCTV, video evidence, still from CCTV, that's it, that's it, sorted. And just threw it straight out. In fact, the judge decided to... In Thursday's ruling, Judge Davidson ruled in favour of the pair and said without his early decision, Mr. Hall would use the trial as a vehicle to advance and test his staged attack hypothesis. Mr. Hibbert said Mr. Hall's claims were repugnant and offensive. So basically they shut him down before he could get going in court. There's a bit here where it says he... represented himself, isn't there? Here, Mr. Hall, who represented himself, had no real prospect, indeed no prospect at all, of success in the case. And he said there'd be a further hearing to decide costs and directions. That's the judge. Said that. So he's going to have to pay costs. He had no chance at all and he was representing himself. Sound like anyone we know? Sound like anyone we know. So I did take a look into this. He's got it on his own website. What's going on, Rich? It's a minute into your film.
America in 2002 created strategic operations and changed the face of training, simulation,
so
and
the film
education.
starts with this advertising video for this strategic operations training stuff, and they can simulate all sorts of disasters and problems with their simulated training kit, or simulated for training. And then we get a picture of the Manchester Arena. Some video of the Manchester train station and arena with some awful music.
You know, conduct these mass casualties.
And then this guy basically says that it's a psyop.
Simulations. It's a fact. It's an established fact.
And apparently it's a fact
that they do it.
That they've been doing
so,
it. Well, they do the simulations for training, yeah, but
you know, it's not as bizarre as it sounds once you realize that the government has been doing this for a very long time.
Don't know who he is. Don't know why he's relevant.
The Manchester Arena bombing was an alleged suicide bomb attack which media reports claimed killed 22 people and a suicide bomber and injured over 100. The numbers vary on the amount of people allegedly injured. According to witnesses, the event started with a loud bang at 10:31 p.m. located inside the arena foyer or the booking office, sometimes referred to as the City Suite. The foyer building is a large enclosed area just outside the main arena and adjoins onto a raised walkway which leads to the Manchester Victoria train station. Many witnesses inside the arena reported hearing 2 bangs. The official Kerslake report and most media reports only mention 1 explosion.
Yeah, well, obviously there'd have been probably 1 explosion from the bomb, but people who were in the arena possibly heard more than 1 because they were confused, disoriented, and maybe there were some loud noises following the first like maybe there was something that fell over, or maybe some doors. Like the device, I believe, was pressure. We'll come to that in a bit, but like, you know, pressure kind of device, like it makes gas go big and boom, and so the explosion might have created a pressure wave that then might have slammed all the doors at once or something like that. So you might hear 2, or maybe because you're in an arena, maybe the the echo, such a massive loud bang. Maybe you'd have an echo from that.
Have postulated that one of the two bangs was played over the arena's PA system.
Right, yeah, I don't think they're going to play a loud bang over the arena's PA system after an explosion at a concert.
It is clear from witness accounts that one of the bangs did originate from something that was situated inside the arena foyer. The foyer is comprehensively covered by CCTV cameras, but footage from these cameras which would prove what happened has not been released.
No, because they're not going to release footage of people being blown up on a CCTV camera, are they?
And this is just one reason why there is contention about what may have happened. They don't necessarily need to release video of any carnage. Just a sequence showing who was in the foyer and where they were situated immediately before the alleged explosion would go some way to establish whether what they have told us is true. But for some reason, they have not done this.
No, what do you mean for some reason? Hang on,
will attempt to
wait.
establish where the truth lies in relation to the reality.
What do you mean for some reason they have not done this? The reason that they have not done this is because you don't need, like, whoever you are, you don't need to verify the victims' accounts. I think maybe the police might want to verify what happened for the court system, but is there a public duty to verify publicly the witnesses' accounts to sort of evidence them? It's not a trial, is it? You don't put victims on trial. It's a bit of a weird one. You don't believe them, got it. But lots of people do, and there's lots of like other evidence surrounding it, the circumstantial evidence. And obviously the real hardcore evidence has been seen by a lot of people as well. So
of this event. Was there a real bomb? Did people get injured at
I think there was.
the arena?
Yeah, I think they did.
And did people die
Yeah.
at the arena?
I don't know. Me personally, actually, I don't know because I wasn't like hardcore into this. So I don't know exactly who was injured and how. But from what I know it's just going on the media. But it wasn't just the media. It was also the people that were there. The actual people in the area. From what I heard, it seemed pretty bad. And like, this is where I tell you, I used to be, when I was 17, I'd have probably agreed with Rich. I'd have probably gone, oh my God, they could have probably been doing a false flag. I was naive and young. But the other option here that he doesn't consider is even if they, the big they, want to do something in public to get you scared, they don't have to fake it. They could just blow people up because they don't care about people. They don't, do they? They send loads of bombs out to bomb people. They send people out to war to blow themselves up. They don't care about people. It's just collateral damage. So that's the angle I might be going for if I was conspiratorial. But I'm not really. Like, I'm not even going to go deep into who did this and why. All I'm saying is Rich is off his nut if he thinks that these people didn't really suffer. They were walking around with visible injuries. People were filming them on their mobiles. Like, you think everyone's an actor and they all went to act at the Ariana? Like, these are normal people from Manchester. Why the official narrative is impossible. So this is really important. This is what everything hinges on. Why the official narrative is impossible. Because it needs to be impossible if you're going to, like, not just implausible or whatever, but impossible, yeah? So we're going to prove it, Rich?
At the arena that night, over 14,000 concert goers attended.
Right.
The vast majority of these people would have had in their possession a mobile phone containing a high-definition digital camera.
Most people had phones, yeah.
Here are two statements which throw into question the veracity of the claims that 22 died and over 100 were injured. Statement 1. There are no publicly available photographs that I have been able to find taken by concert goers which show any of the deceased victims taken after the bang, either dead or alive, and situated in or immediately outside the arena.
Right. That's because if you were at this event and you were a younger person or even an adult with your younger people, but it's mainly younger people and they're adults, yeah, and a bomb goes off, you're not thinking about taking photos of dead people. You're thinking about getting out of there as quickly as possible. And if anyone's injured, getting them help. Like, photographs are the last thing you're thinking about. And if they did have them, then again, like you said, publicly available, publishing them on Facebook or whatever is not going to be the case, is it? Oh, I've got some photos of a dead person from a bomb. It's not going to be generally put out in the social media in the UK. Even if it was, the social media would pipe it down because it's pretty distasteful. So I don't think you would see publicly available photos of deceased people. I don't think, most of the, you look on the telly at most of the terrible tragedies, like even Gaza and stuff, you might see some images of the deceased there, tastefully done. You're not going to see just like raw and hardcore people getting shot to bits, are you? But it is happening. It's just they're not going to show it on the telly. They're not going to publish it on Facebook. So you can find it on the internet at further, deeper, darker, leaky sort of places, I guess. But with this sort of stuff, not so much, because the 14-year-old girls and their parents were not sort of taking photos and trying to leak them on the internet for conspiracy nuts to confirm that people really got hurt.
Statement 2. There are no publicly available images that I have been able to find taken by concert goers showing any serious injury and situated in or immediately outside the arena.
Right, that's the same statement. Although later on in these videos, you're going to show us exactly that. You're going to show publicly available images showing injuries, but they're injuries that he thinks aren't real, so they don't count. But they do exist. Videos do exist like this, but Rich says they don't count because they're not real injuries, or they're not. I can't see the injury close enough. Can you zoom in and make the blood squirt? In fact, later on, he's going to show us a video where there is actually blood. So, he contradicts himself here. But if that's it, if that's the reason it can't be, because you haven't seen photographs of a graphic nature regarding the injured people that attended the concert, you don't think it's real. That's a very thin, paper-thin, tissue-thin sort of argument, isn't it? Because just because you haven't seen them doesn't mean if a tree falls to the ground, does it make a sound? Well, unless Richard D. Hall's in the forest, no. No trees do any sounds unless Richard D. Hall stands there and sees them. Thank you very much. You've got to ask, how much evidence do you need, and what sort of evidence would be satisfactory to you? Because later on we're going to see that video evidence even still is not satisfactory to him. But fortunately for the courts, they've got a much more, they can look at much more raw CCTV and stuff. And my guess, even though the court case has been principled on a still, and a still can be faked, of course, but they're trusting that the still has come from, the police, and of course they could be faking it as well. But all it took was one still photograph to say to the judge, "No, Your Honour, these two people were definitely at the event," and Richard's saying they're not, and then they won because they were definitely. CCTV seems to be fine for the judge, and it seems like they've got access to slightly more stuff, so they have seen these images. There are images existing of these people all damaged and deceased, but you just don't get to see them.
Think carefully about those two statements.
Big ups, capital K. You're messaging me from your Apple Vision Pro. What's an Apple Vision Pro? Oh my God, you've got a head face on!
Immediately before the bang,
I've got to do this react now, but big up to you, you chuffer, with your headset.
at least 2 witnesses claim in media statements that Showsex stewards, the subcontracted arena security staff, were stopping people from entering the foyer by blocking access to the doors which lead from the arena concourse into the foyer.
Right, that's quite normal, isn't it?
This is confirmed by a Jenny Brewster, who was interviewed by Sky News that night.
And so we did. We went to the bathroom, and then we said, let's go now before the rush. So we walked towards where the MEN car park is, where we were parked, and there was a row of stewards stood in a line, stopping us getting through, but they were very friendly, and they said, this isn't your best way, girls. You're best turning round, and you can get to your car.
Yeah, when I went to the Birmingham City Football Club World Cup final, League Cup final against Arsenal, we won the League Cup. It was brilliant. And right at the end, after we'd won the game, finish of the game, everyone's celebrating, I wanted to run round to see my dad, who was sat in a slightly different part of the arena. And as I left to walk around the concourse, which previously had just been walkable, there was a row of stewards, and they said, could you leave out this way, please? And I said, no, I want to go over there. My dad's sitting over there. I need to meet up with him. And they went, well, actually, you have to leave out this way. And I said, oh, come on. We just won the cup, and my dad's over there, and we're sitting in different parts of the ground. I just need to go and meet up with him. And the guy went, oh, all right, then go on. And he let me through. And all it was that when you leave the establishment at the end of a big night, like with the Ariana Grande concert, before the bomb went off, everyone might want to leave through the same door because it's the main train station. Sorry, we don't want you to do that. If you're coming from this part of the stadium, can you leave off this part? And you're coming from this part, you can still walk around to the train station. You can still access it. But if everyone tries to get out the same door, it might cause problems. So what we do at the end of the gigs is we sort of direct people, especially if there's a lot of people, off in different exits, depending on where they're coming from. So if you've come out of this door, you'll go out of that way. It's not because they're trying to stop you because there's a psyop.
Park that way. As I turn around, boom, one loud noise.
In a recent TV episode of a programme called Educating Manchester, a girl called Freya also described similar.
We was waiting to be let out to walk down to the foyer area, and while we was waiting, no one would let us past, and all of a sudden we had a massive explosion, and it went quiet, and then everyone just started screaming and running.
These statements are not mentioned in the official Kerslake report. Indeed, the Kerslake report states the opposite. Page 108. Within the first few minutes after the explosion, the duty manager instructed showsex stewards in the arena bowl to close the aisles nearest to the foyer exit and for the stewards on the concourse to position themselves to divert concert goers in order, as far as possible, to avoid the public having to witness the scenes in the foyer.
So it doesn't state the opposite. It says that within the first few minutes after the explosion, the stewards were told to get everyone out of the way of the foyer. No one else is going through the foyer. So you're saying before the explosion, some people were directed to not go through the foyer. And those people were people that were coming from outside of the foyer area anyway. So it doesn't mean that before they were and then after. It's not the opposite. It's that before they were directing them out and afterwards they were also directing them. It's the same, not opposite. Just at different times they were doing it for different reasons.
According to first-hand witnesses,
Richard D. Hall has really not looked into this and thought this through carefully, has he? Like, for this to be a good case, you have to be solid, tight. You can't just be like, well, someone said they couldn't get through there, so that's it. They were psyops. They were blocking them. They knew what was going to happen. If there's another reasonable explanation, then you have to go for that instead, I think. So.
Report is incorrect here. Showsex stewards diverted concert goers away from the foyer before the bang, not after the bang.
Yeah, before and after.
The Sun newspaper featured a story about worried parent Nick Bickerstaff, who filmed himself walking along the arena concourse, searching for his daughter Ellen and shouting out her name. The Sun implied that he recorded his film immediately after the bang. Let's watch the whole clip, then I will make some observations.
Now, this one's weird as well, because what this guy has to do with everything, I don't really know. I mean, apparently he's filming this.
Ellen! Ellen!
Now, it looks like he's lost his daughter, so you don't know if this was before or after. I agree. But it's irrelevant, really, because it's just this guy shouting Ellen.
Ellen!
And out here,
Ellen!
we have a lot of people wandering around. Now, it could have been like just immediately after. It could be like 40 minutes after. There could still be people wandering about. I would expect everyone to have tried to vacate the entire area, but then people could be looking for their friends and family. I don't know. Or he might have been coming out like, just before Ariana Grande starts singing because he'd lost her.
Oh!
And he just thought, well, I've got a video of me looking worried. I might send it in. Like, out of nearly 2,000 people, one of them could have been doing weird stuff. I don't know what this really means, but...
Ellen.
There's a lot of confusion, a lot of people looking worried, and, like...
Ellen. Oh, my God. Ellen. Ellen.
Like, people are walking...
Ellen. Ellen.
And he's really looking for Ellen. I mean, I don't think anything happened to his daughter.
Ellen. Ellen. Ellen.
But it doesn't seem that like loads of people are scrambling because there's been a big problem.
Ellen.
Like, this video is annoying me now because it's just him going Ellen, Ellen, Ellen.
Ellen. Ellen. Ellen.
I can't even see where we are.
Ellen. Ellen. People are laughing and they don't know what's behind me. People bashed into bits and half their bodies are everywhere.
And he says, people are laughing and they don't know what's behind me. People are bashing to bits and half their bodies are everywhere. So maybe these people in this area are not aware of what's happened. And that's why they're all not reacting, all panicked. And he's managed to get himself out into this area. I don't know.
Ellen! 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 Ellen!
Concert goers that can be seen in the background seem very calm and are not rushing for the exits.
No, but the man explained they haven't been made aware of the problem yet.
He is the only person who is...
Like, the bomb went off in the foyer in one area, and it's a loud bang, agreed. And it should probably have set off alarms and maybe, evacuation, but I don't know.
Panicking.
People are saying, you're going to say this man might be a psyop, this man might be an actor, or he might be a nutter, or he might be an anyone. It doesn't prove or disprove anything, and unless you know exactly what's going on and when this was taken with some context, it doesn't really mean anything. If you went to see Ariana Grande the night before and you lost your daughter and you filmed a video of you looking panicked, you might... I mean, the only thing that was of any note there was he said people don't know what's going on, and behind me, like these things happened and people don't know what's going on. So it might be. But from what I saw, people were scrambling to get out of the venue when it happened, like from the videos of interior of the venue that I saw. So I don't know.
And people can be heard mimicking him. His video shows no evidence of a bomb having gone off, no smoke, and no evidence of injured people.
No.
Everything in the background looks perfectly normal. These factors led me and other researchers to suspect his video may have been filmed before the bang.
Well, it could have been.
And possibly even before the concert.
Yeah, but it wouldn't explain what he meant by people or bodies going off in there, but it doesn't explain anything anyway.
A girl is seen in the video carrying a large pink balloon. These balloons were dropped from the ceiling onto the audience during the song Sometimes, which was played about 20 minutes before the end of the concert.
What I'm saying is, one man shot a weird video, and that's, like, it's not enough to prove anything, though, is it? Like, that man could be a stone bonker for all you know.
So Bickerstaff's video cannot have been filmed before the concert. Activity in the concourse towards the end of a gig can be significant because some people leave early while others buy late drinks at the bar. UK critical thinker recognised a young man called Jordan Kenny in the background of Bickerstaff's video and managed to contact him on Facebook. Kenny confirmed he was still in his seat inside the arena when he heard the bang, but could not confirm what time it was when he was caught on Nick Bickerstaff's camera.
Right, and did you ask him if he ran out the arena, or if everyone thought it was a bomb, or if they all left orderly by this side queue and were confused and disoriented, or what?
In a YouTube video, Kenny explains that when he left the arena immediately after the bang, he was with a friend called Laura. But in Bickerstaff's video, he is alone.
Well, Laura could be any of these people just around.
Concourse bar is directly behind Bickerstaff's camera.
So the concourse bar is this way.
And Kenny is seen going into his wallet, walking towards the bar.
Well, you know, he appears to have something in his hand, which could be his wallet, yeah?
To buy a drink.
Well, presumably, I don't know what he's doing with it. He could be getting ready to get his train ticket out to leave.
This suggests that the concert had not yet finished and that Kenny was intending to go back to his seat after buying drinks.
Not necessarily.
In the final sequence, Bickerstaff stands next to the bar underneath a TV screen.
Right.
The concourse screens usually display a live feed showing the concert inside the arena bowl.
Okay.
Although it is not perfectly clear, it looks like the video screen above Bickerstaff's head is showing the Ariana concert.
Well, it looks like something's moving about there, yeah.
If this is the case, then Bickerstaff's video was filmed before the bang because the bang occurred after the concert had finished.
Right, although anything could be on the telly.
If you consider Nick Bickerstaff's actions in his video, in my opinion, he does not exhibit the behaviour of a parent looking for his child. After experiencing the adrenaline rush of realising your child is missing, would you start filming yourself on your phone? He walks past the arena stewards without asking for help. He does not try to phone his daughter. I suspect Nick Bickerstaff filmed his video sometime before the bang.
You can suspect what you like.
I also suspect he was a crisis actor.
You think he might be a crisis actor? I would be, if he filmed this before the bang, I'd say more, instead of crisis actor, I'd say nutter.
Was merely playing the role of a worried parent, and part of his remit was to film himself so that his footage could be used in media reports.
People are laughing and they don't know what's behind me. People bashed into bits and half their bodies are everywhere. Ah!
And like that just sounds nuts. People bashing to bits and half their bodies are everywhere. It might be that he really didn't like what was going on the stage and he had a bit of a panic attack. Like, you don't know what was going on. You don't know if he's just sent this in to try and get a bit of money because he's got a weird video that he shot at the time. Like,
Bickerstaff's words suggest that there was foreknowledge of what was about to occur.
Foreknowledge? People didn't get all their bodies bashed together and body parts everywhere. That's hyperbole.
Another aspect which points to foreknowledge and proves the official narrative is impossible is the choice of the supposed perpetrator. The media put out still images showing the alleged suicide bomber purporting to show him on the night of the event with most of the background removed, making it difficult to establish his location.
Well, you didn't need to establish his location. They were just trying to... What?
It has been established by researcher UK...
Like, the people who took those stills and blocked out the black, they know where his location was.
Critical thinker that this photograph probably was taken in the Victoria train station lift,
Why?
which goes from the Victoria train station platform up to the raised walkway and leads into the foyer. Former
Could be.
MI5 officer David Shaler has stated that Salman Abedi's father was an MI6 asset codenamed Tunworth and was paid handsomely for his part in a failed attempt to assassinate Colonel Gaddafi in 1996.
That proves everything then.
We can assume then that it is likely that Salman Abedi himself was an intelligence asset.
Why?
Information from 3
My dad's a roofer, I'm not.
independent sources suggests that whatever was used to make the bang was placed by an Asian male who ran out of the foyer before it went off. This means there was no suicide, nor any suicide bomber.
I don't know about that.
The first source is from a recording from the Greater Manchester Police radio comms in which a police officer states the following.
Come on. BTC Sergeant 2202 has been approached by a male who said it was an Asian male, put down a rucksack and ran out of the area. Can I give you a description?
So somebody, after a blast has happened, has said to the police there was an Asian male, they put it down and they ran out the area. I mean, they could be confused.
6694, go ahead. Yeah, it's an Asian male described as, just I'm about to get it down. Wearing glasses, black baseball cap, and it was a large black rucksack which he said was hidden by the wall.
The second source is from the BBC
Well, hang on. Yep, he was wearing glasses, baseball cap, rucksack. So they've got the right guy, haven't they? It's just whether he's running away at the end or not.
3-2.
There was a gentleman, family man, he was with his daughters. I asked him, I said, what's happened? And he said, there's a guy. I knew there was something wrong with him. He said he threw his bag and there was a large explosion and he ran off. I'm thinking, right, he's at last.
So he threw the bag, then there was an explosion, then he ran off. Presumably everyone ran off after the explosion. But if you're throwing the bag and it's got all those explosives in and all these people have been hurt, then you would think maybe he wasn't in a great position to run off, or maybe he was running off with injuries. I mean, I don't know. I think everyone probably ran off and you were confused and you might think he'd run off. But it's one of those where, like, you know, even on a more minor crime, let's say someone crashes their car in the street and then everyone gathers round, and then half an hour later you come around and take statements and everyone tells you what happened. It's possible they'd all know exactly what happened, or it's possible they might have said to each other something in whispers and Chinese whispers and did you hear and did you see, and by the time the police get there and go around, there's a rumour gone and people have got confused. And when you look back at the video, it's not as they all thought. You know, it's possible that, especially if it's been something so large and shocking.
The third source is a witness who contacted me in 2018 and claimed he had witnessed...
Although, like Chris's Substack will say, I'm a shill here, but what I'm doing is I'm offering a more reasonable and logical explanation. I'm wondering if I can't explain these things, because this is what Rich's case hangs off. It's not real because. It can't have happened because. Well, could this have happened? Yeah. Could somebody have said this? Yeah. Could the guy have even tried to run off? Yeah. Could he have even run off? Possibly. Like, does it mean the bomb didn't happen? No. No.
Police photographs of the aftermath of the bang, and in his interview with me, he said, it's not a suicide bomber, because there was a massive scorch mark up the wall. There was no torso, no legs, no anything, no blood up the wall. There was just a massive scorch mark up the wall.
Right.
While I cannot confirm the witness who I interviewed saw any photographs, if there was a scorch mark up the wall, the device that was used could have been placed against the wall in the foyer, not in the centre of the foyer, as mainstream media have claimed.
Or something near there set on fire. Like, if you've got a big bin near the wall or a fire extinguisher or something like that, perhaps the pressure of this explosion set something on fire and that caused a scorch mark up the wall as like a byproduct. And like, he didn't have to be sat on the damn thing up against the wall, did he? So the no blood up the wall, I don't know. You know, no torso, no legs. I mean, I don't know how obliterated you get. It's very gruesome. But for some randomer just to say, well, it wasn't this because there wasn't that. Like, come on.
Count of the wall concurs with...
Plus, you don't get to see the images, so you don't know.
Police comm statement that the bag was hidden by the wall. It is also clear from the previous two police statements that the person who left the bag ran off before a bang occurred.
Well, the police were worried because of the descriptions given by the public that somebody ran off. They took that to be, you know, something to take seriously, and they looked out for.
I've marked on this diagram where I suspect the bag was dropped.
Where you suspect?
Dropped. So here we have two major points of contention with the official narrative. Firstly, a bag was placed against the foyer wall.
Well, the official... it contravenes the official narrative because you just put the X in the wrong place, no?
Not in the centre of the foyer. Secondly, the person who...
I mean, that's quite near the centre of the foyer. It depends what your... We're not going to get to skip like that, no. Like the bang near the centre of the... It's like spot the ball, isn't it? Bang near the centre of the foyer is there. Up the stairs is over there. Over there is like, you know, all this... Like, it's quite close to the centre of the foyer. Central to the foyer. Within like a few... Like... It's not hidden behind the stall. It's not in the hospitality thing. It's not up the box office. It's over here central to the... Like, getting the exact location, I don't know, but it's not far off, is it? I mean...
It's also clear from the previous two police statements.
When you're giving a description of an event that happened just moments ago and you're on the radios and trying to get, you know, to some people it might have seemed like it was right there. I think that's fine just to say central to the foyer. Oh, it's slightly off to the left. Oh no, he got it wrong.
That the person who left the bag ran off before a bang occurred. I've marked on this diagram where I suspect the bag was dropped. So here we have two major points of contention with the official narrative. Firstly, a bag was placed against the foyer wall, not in the centre of the foyer. Secondly,
right, that's not a major point of contention. Do go on.
The person who placed the bag ran off before it went bang.
Well, that's not also a major contention. Like, on the day, I've said this before, and it goes like this for the Nicola Buddy stuff as well, is that on the day, and with the Nicola Buddy stuff, it turns out that you had a church group, a village hall meeting, and everyone got together and had a good chance to talk to each other and gossip. And then people said things to the police. Like, it turns out that Chinese whispers, gossip, people, rumours, on the immediate, it's really important to get on the immediate scene all the eyewitness reports and all those reports straight up, as soon as possible. But then it's also really important to go back over them and check that they're right, because they might not always be right.
There was no suicide. Not only did the suspect flee the scene, it seems likely he was witnessed getting out of a car shortly before the bag was placed. Here is another section from the police radio comms.
6694. Reading the log, we've had a call from the public saying a short while ago he saw an Asian male out of a grey Audi get a rucksack on his back and run off in the direction of the arena.
Right, so bear in mind, if you were just going to be naive and maybe slightly racist, you might think that sounds really bad, because there was an Asian male at the arena with a rucksack who blew it thing up. But Asian people working in and around the arena, it's probably quite common, and having a bag is also quite a common thing. So, like, let's say somebody worked there behind the bloody, bar or something, and they were slightly late for work. There's quite a lot of reasons why there could have been an Asian male park up nearby and quickly get up to work. Like, it's quite a common thing. So, yes, it might seem like a striking thing because there's an Asian male that let off a bomb, yeah? But you've got to be careful, So that could be a real legitimate one, that could really be the guy, or it might not be.
He states that vehicle, when he called us, was still parked opposite the hotel on the corner next to the MEN Arena.
The radio comms also reveal that the grey Audi was parked on Cheetham Hill Road outside Land of Furniture, registration FV05.
Could also be someone who dropped off the guy.
OPO. Land of Furniture is just 250 metres from the foyer. After sighting the vehicle, the police do not report that anyone else was inside it.
So the police didn't see anyone else inside it, but the police didn't see it in the first place, did they? They got a report from a member of the public.
They did not go too close to the vehicle in case it was booby-trapped.
So they just waited on a parked car.
Sometime later, the same Audi vehicle was pursued by armed police, so it is likely the same Asian male left the area in the grey Audi.
Is it? I mean, the same Asian male who's reported to have owned it in the first place?
Yeah, there's anybody with this silver Audi at the moment? No. It's under ops still, yeah. Yeah, I think it's been driven up at the moment. Have still got the Audi under ops?
354, I can see it approaching our location, I think. So the traffic lights are junction of Lord Street.
The Audi's driven off Lord Street.
Any directions what you want to do? They're just going left onto Lord Street.
Left onto Lord Street, yeah, received.
Extra go to 1758, I'm directly behind this vehicle.
758 directly behind the vehicle.
Can you get some ARVs to me, please?
Yeah, we are doing. Any X-ray golf on this channel receiving?
58,
I'll just, skip across a little bit. They follow this car. It takes a bit of a route. I mean, it might be worried that there's police behind it. It circles back around on itself, which is weird, to be honest, isn't it? Because you think if you start over here, I don't know if there's a one-way system, but you think if you start over here and you want to get over here, then you would just drive down this road, unless there was a lot of traffic at the end of the Ariana Grande concert that it was avoiding. Maybe it's that. So it's just thought, I'm just going to loop round. I'm just going to come this way.
In mainstream media, it completely contradicts the suicide bomb.
And then all the police jumped on it and arrested.
A narrative they have falsely extolled. Considering this evidence, we can conclude it is very likely that after placing the bag in the foyer...
So Richard actually had a little film of this.
In mainstream media, it completely contradicts...
That comes up in his next video, this person on the street with a phone just filming that armed arrest of this Audi driver, which later on apparently came to nothing. So I'm glad the police were on that, because it could have legit been the person who let off the bomb. But since they've got CCTV of the person who let off the bomb, and since they really were all there, like, full on, I'm thinking maybe it was just, one of them things. It looks really close to being, it could be absolutely definite. Like, well, there was an Asian guy, rucksack, that's it then. Like, but it could also be not, couldn't it? So I think I might have to trust the police that in a large group pulled, like, if it was a psyop and they wanted to let them get away, wouldn't they have just let them get away? Like, how did they swing this? That they all got involved, all arrested them, all had a good look at them, and then later on they said, hey lads and ladies, We're going to psyop this one, so shut up about that arrest. Tone down the reports of the arrest. We don't want anyone to know about the arrest. Like, that's not going to happen, is it? Just seems silly. And if it was serious, then don't you think an arrest is serious, so they had enough grounds to arrest them. But then again, serious thing had just happened, so maybe they did have enough grounds to arrest them. Or maybe they were smoking weed or something, I don't know. Like, whoever this person is, if you found out exactly who it was and you had all that confirmed to you, would that make it better? Or are you still going to live in a world where that was definitely the terrorist and they just let him go?
It's the suicide bomber narrative.
Big ups, Leslie Pats. Thank you for the 100 bitties.
They have.
I'll press a button. I will press a button. Button for the bitties.
High heels on my tippies.
Falsely extolled. Considering this evidence, we can conclude it is very likely that after placing the bag in the foyer, the bomber ran out of the arena.
What? Considering this evidence, a couple of eyewitness accounts of somebody running off from people who had recently been through a massive shock, like literally been through a massive. The one of them said he threw the bag down and then ran. So, like, it's quite plausible that he didn't get very far, and that after the massive explosion and shock that you didn't really know what was happening anyway, and then somebody else that was also Asian drove a car. Do you know what I'm saying? It feels a little bit tenuous. I mean, imagine how many, I don't want to be racially profiling here in any way, but imagine how many Asian people were working in the area at the time. Like, you know, you're talking about a metropolitan city. You've got Uber drivers, taxi drivers, people working in the stall stands. Like, there's lots of different jobs going on around here. You've got people working in the railways, you know, just in this area as well. Not like working at McDonald's up the road or working in the solicitors in the, you know, in the main town. I'm talking about right here, these jobs that are happening while this gig is on, and that people might at the end of the gig go and get in their car and leave. And especially if there's been a big disaster like this, you know, like if you're in the area, you might be worried and you might think, oh, I'm going to leave. Don't like this. So there's loads of people who, for loads of different reasons, could have just been Asian and in the area, and it's not a crime to be Asian, even if a bomb did go off.
Sometime later, he got into a grey Audi and drove off, but was followed and then stopped and arrested at gunpoint about half a mile from the arena.
What caused the bang? Massive bomb.
Here is Detective Superintendent Nick Sedgemore, Director of Intelligence at British Transport Police, talking about the type of explosive used.
We've got him coming back on the plane from Libya, then purchasing all the necessary stuff to make the bomb, a rucksack, shrapnel, nuts and bolts. It goes.
So I think that's what's in it.
About making TATP, also known as Mother of Satan.
TATP, then?
It was used in the Brussels attacks, Paris, and Barcelona.
Just in front of the orange water balloon is 0.5 grams of TATP.
Well, you know what's going to happen here?
Or about 1/60th of an ounce. It's about the size of a sugar packet. We're going to detonate it with current from a 9-volt battery.
It's going to blow it up, innit?
The water balloon is just to illustrate the effect.
Whoa.
And there is no flame. TATP is what's called an entropic explosive. It works by creating a huge quantity of gas very quickly. What little energy there is, it goes into creating the shockwave.
Shockwave.
No light is given off, no flash, no smoke, no heat, and the explosion is only blast.
Well, a shockwave will create heat, though, won't it?
Bang, the loudest I've ever heard in a flash.
Flash, the brightest flash I've ever seen in my life.
Flash of light.
Orange flash, like a fire would give off, but like a firework kind of colour.
A wash of orange light.
So they're all describing a flash, and Richie's going to say, yeah, but the bomb doesn't flash. It's not explosive like that, is it? It's a pressure thing. So surely high pressure shockwave causes you to see a flash of light. Sure, it's going to mess with your eyes, isn't it? Why is a shockwave visible? A shockwave is actually visible then. Air is transparent, but it has optical properties which can be distorted by heat and pressure, known as refraction. The refractive index in light changes, and it can be in air changes, and it can be compressed into a small area. So you can actually see the shock waves. My question was really like, you know, if a massive shockwave hits you, like, does it affect your vision? Because I think it kind of could, basically. Pressure on the retina. Yeah, like, there you go. Like, if you press on your retina, pressure on your retina. Like if you press on your eyes, it goes a bit white, doesn't it? You know, the pressure. I'm not suggesting you should press on your eyes, but light flashes due to extra pressure. That can happen. So my guess, here again, flashes, pressure on the retina. So my guess is that that increased air pressure for a huge and sudden second, that's what caused the big flash of light in people's eyes, yeah? Like, that makes sense to me.
Surrounding the room, it's bright, like snow coming towards you.
And it's really weird the way none of them can quite describe exactly what it, because it's a sensory thing rather than an actual physical thing they're seeing, isn't it? So
Flames rolled.
Flames rolled. I don't know, like she might be imagining that.
Thick black smoke.
There was a lot of smoke about.
To be honest, I thought I was on fire. And like the hair was very burned. A bit.
Burned hair.
So like ashes coming from the ceiling, like black ceiling.
Ash coming from the ceiling. So they all describe smoke and ash. Like, what you've got to consider is that shockwave, like, will instantly vibrate all of the dust and all of the whatever, like, that's like, it's almost like banging a carpet, isn't it? Like, you're suddenly going to get an increased level of whatever in the air. I don't know if it's even possible for it to set things on fire. Like I said, like it could blow something up that's pressurized, like a fire extinguisher or lighting. Like light bulbs are under pressure, aren't they? Like, it could. There's so many different ways that shockwave could knock on to causing a fire or some kind of smoke. But I'm also saying huge level of dust all of a sudden released from anything that's collected it in the area.
If any of these observations are truthful, then the device used was not a TATP device.
Or the people that were describing it were confused because they heard a massive loud bang and saw a flash, and as far as they were concerned, it must be the sort of bomb they were used to, and so the rest of their mind filled in any details they saw to be corroborative evidence for that, because people are like that.
How can all of these witnesses be mistaken? It is difficult to reconcile.
Because they're just ordinary people who don't know what's going on, and there's been a massive explosion and everything's gone bright. So, like, it's easy for them to be mistaken.
Witness testimony evidence with the official TATP.
A lot of them there look quite young as well. So I don't know if they've got any experience in high explosives and, what they think is smoke or dust or the knock-on effects.
Narrative. The TATP explanation is an appealing choice for those running a fake story, because TATP can be made with easy-to-obtain ingredients, so it's easy to explain how a device could have been made. However, if your remit is to scare people and present something that merely seems like a bomb, something that is more like a firework or pyrotechnic device is more in line with what people would expect to see. What witnesses described was more like a pyrotechnic device. They did not describe a TATP device.
Well,
if the bomb was real and caused the damage that was reported, why have the authorities lied about the type of explosive used? I suggest the answer is because the explosive was merely a pyrotechnic device.
It's either a pyrotechnic device and then they all lied about it, or it's TATP and they all got hurt and some of their descriptions are slightly off. That's what you're saying, yeah? And you're going to fall on the side of it was a pyrotechnic device rather than those people were slightly confused.
Therefore, the official narrative has to lie about the type of explosive used.
What's up? You're
Safely
all right.
to simulate.
What data?
Safely to simulate.
I received a statement from a roadie who was working at the arena that night. He is pictured in media photographs, so I have verified he was there. Here's what he said.
He's pictured in media photographs, but you don't like the media. You think everyone's lying to us.
When the concert ended and we walked onto the stage to start taking the drum kit down, heard a bang which we thought was just a flight case falling over. And then the stage manager's radio started going ballistic, and he just went. And there was panic, there was pandemonium in the arena. No one knew what had gone on. And the stage manager said, right, everyone out of the building. As you come off the stage of the arena, probably a 50-yard walk to the loading bay and then out to the back staff entrance. So it would take, what, a minute? And as we come out of the loading bay, there was 8 armed police come running past, which is where I think they had some sort of intelligence about this, because the armed response were that quick.
The armed response were that quick. You said the concert ended. You walked on the stage to start taking the drum kit down. I don't know if you've ever been to a concert. I don't know how quickly things happen after the end of the concert in terms of the lights coming on and they start coming, taking the drum kit down. But it might not be the minute the concert finishes. There might be a minute or two, and it might not seem like time is passing very quickly for you, but time might be passing while you amble around on, get ready to go on the stage. She comes off, there's this, there's that, and then you get to touch. The minute you're on the drum kit, I think a few minutes have gone by already for a start. The bang happens while you're doing the drum kit, and the stage manager's radio starts going. There was panic and pandemonium. No one knew what was going on, and the stage manager said, right, everyone out the building, come off the stage of the arena, probably a 50-yard walk. So during the time that this before the stage managers made that decision, there's been enough time for the radio to be going, the pandemonium. So you've got a minute there, maybe. Yeah. On top of this, you think the police are there very quickly. But what are the armed police in Manchester doing other than patrolling, being on call, stuff like that, you know, being around? And this is like a really massive concert with a big police presence, like compared to just a normal day. And like people are worried about terrorism in general, aren't they? So the fact the police are there quite quick, that's quite good. I mean, I don't know if it means they definitely knew something was happening and it was fake. Like, it seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Like, to be like, it took me about 10 minutes and then the police arrived. Like, I mean, he's saying it took less than 10 minutes probably, and they were there very quick. But I mean, from city centre Manchester to one of the biggest arenas in the city, you're the police and there's been a terrorist bomb. Like, you're just like every local, like the most local unit that can get there are like in and going as like, this is like proper emergency time, isn't it? It's like go time. We've been training for this. So the fact that they are there with it, like, is there anywhere within Manchester city centre that you shouldn't be able to access within? I mean, you would think, like what I'm basically saying is you would think that for an event of any size, and they get lots of events, lots of sized events, like they're quite used to them in Manchester. So you would think that they are used to the concept that if something goes wrong here, we need the police there in minutes. You would think that that's a standard thing. So good for them.
For coming off the stage to get there, there's 8 armed plod coming in, so they must have knew something. The Kerslake report states that the first armed response vehicle arrived at the Trinity Way entrance to the arena at 22:41, and that the first armed police arrived in the foyer at 22:43. The eyewitness saw 8 armed police, who would normally require 4 vehicles, inside the arena just 1 minute after the bang.
Well, I don't think it was 1 minute after the bang. They weren't timing it. They were stood on the stage having panic and pandemonium. Then they had to get outside. I don't know if it was 1 minute after the bang. You know, that's an eyewitness. Like, it's like this Nicola Buddy thing. Everyone's going hard on the eyewitnesses who said this. Then they're also critiquing them because the 2 reports don't line up and this and that. Like, I'm going to go that the armed police vehicle arrived at the arena at 22:41 because when they did, they radioed in and said, armed police have arrived at the arena. That's probably quite accurate. The dude that was on stage trying to take apart the drum kit after the gig and is like discombobulated waiting for the stage manager to shout at him to get out, like, less accurate.
Which was at 22:32. Armed response being on site within 1 minute again suggests that authorities had foreknowledge of the event, and the Kerslake report is being used to obfuscate this fact.
Does it?
We know that SMG or HOAX stewards were controlling access to the foyer via the concourse door.
Yeah, because of course they are, because there's it's a busy event and you don't want everyone leaving through the same door.
Was immediately before the bang. The Kerslake report states that 5 stewards were inside the foyer at the time of the bang.
Right.
It's interesting that none of the 5 stewards were reported to have been killed or injured. If this was an exercise, the 5 stewards may have played a role in managing the exercise inside the foyer, which might explain why none were reported as injured. I'm not aware that any SMG or HOAX stewards have given interviews or posted information online about their experiences. The Kerslake report states, a GMP inspector soon taking over the police management of the foyer from the BTP sergeant who had taken initial control. The Greater Manchester Police Inspector was Mike Smith. Smith has not been named in mainstream media. If we consider Inspector Smith's role described in the Kerslake report, i.e. managing the foyer, this would have involved manning the foyer doors to the arena.
Would it? Why?
The car parks and the train station. This would allow him to control who was permitted into and out of the foyer.
Really?
Having 8 armed officers with him would be ideal for controlling the foyer entrances and exits. Is this the real reason why 8 armed officers were at the arena as soon as the bang occurred?
Why didn't they go in the foyer then? Apparently the other dude went out the stage door at the back, didn't they? Right, everyone out the building, come off the stage at the arena, probably a 50-yard walk to the loading bay, back staff entrance, and the police come running past. So if they're so concerned with controlling the foyer, what are they doing coming in the back?
To control who was allowed into the foyer. Police officers who were on call that evening were told by the control room to report to the booking office, i.e. the foyer, but most were not permitted entry to witness the casualties inside and were redeployed by Mike Smith elsewhere.
Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? Like, this could be dangerous, and the police are not really necessary for policing the casualties, are they? Nick Bickerstaff's house. I don't know who Nick Bickerstaff is, but apparently we're outside his house, so I'm going to skip on past that. I'm going to skip on past that bad image that you just saw for a second of people that are really damaged and hurty. right?
Whatever the reason for the 4-hour difference, the entry is still suggesting the image was taken in the morning on the 22nd of May 2017. The image was taken at 11 minutes past 7 on the 22nd of May 2017.
And that image doesn't show anything terrible, and I hope we get away with it on YouTube sort of thing. I might have to put this through an editor and just blur that bit out, you know. But this is a weird one because Rich, in his first video, makes a big point here of saying that the metadata says that this photograph was created 6 hours before the accident happened. And it was taken by a tramp, apparently, by a vagrant, by a homeless person. So I don't know what's going on here. But in this, and my answer to this is I don't trust the phone of the vagrant to have the correct metadata stamping and to be linked up to the internet and stuff like that. You know, maybe the last time the phone was linked up to the internet was at a certain time and the metadata stamping is off because they don't keep up with their phone contract. I don't know. But ultimately, what's really weird about this is that Rich then skipped past that bad photo. Like he makes a lot of those bad photos. And what's really weird about it is that later on in the next video, he basically says he was wrong. And he thinks those videos were taken at the time and that photo was taken at the time. So he changes his mind on that, but he leaves it in his first video anyway.
A store looking out onto the walkway. The white rectangle of light is coming forth,
absolutely
looking out
nuts, right? He says this door out here, it must be daylight outside because you can see that light there. What that light is, it's a reflection of the stuff over here. You'll see in a minute.
The walkway. The white rectangle of light is coming through the train station's ETFE panels.
No, it's not.
And we also see the canopy, the walkway railing, and the walkway.
I mean, you could see that through there, but what you're seeing on this glass door, in my opinion, is a reflection of a light from over here.
I conclude that the video was filmed during the hours of daylight.
He thinks the video is filmed in the day. He changes his mind on this in the second video, though. So, what's interesting to me is that in the second video, which we'll quickly watch in a second as well, because he changes his mind on it, what does he mean to say it's okay to change your mind because the metadata said this, so I thought the metadata was right, and I later on changed my mind, the metadata must be wrong. Like, because that's what I thought initially, is right, the metadata must be wrong then, because this all seems to be lining up with everything else we've seen. It's the only piece of evidence that doesn't line up with the metadata being different. Maybe the metadata is different, whereas he's also got this. So, okay, we got the metadata wrong, the video was taken, but what about this? He'll never really explain how he got this wrong and what it really is, but
this is consistent with the still image.
But that is what that is, that bright light there. And this is a really bad picture, but there's just some blood on the floor, really, and it's all the people being hurt. So I think I might have to download this React and put it through an editor with just blurring this bit out. Sorry, YouTube, but you can't see it. But it's just people lying around on the floor and there's some blood. But it is obviously, you know, there are some proper bits of...
Which we've already seen was taken at 7 a.m. Were they blocking out glass skylight in the bang TFE panels? And we also see the canopy.
Won't have skip through it properly. So then he says that on top there's this skylight and they maybe put some sort of, he thinks they put some sort of covering over the skylight just so that they can do the video earlier in the day, and then they cleaned everything up and then the concert happened that evening.
This drone footage filmed.
But he changes his mind about that in the second video, so I don't know why he leaves this up.
Within a few weeks of the bang shows there was no damage to the skylight in the foyer. In addition, the skylight appears to have blinds or covers fitted on the inside, blocking daylight from the arena foyer. Here is a comparison with a Google Earth image. If photographs were being staged at 7:11 a.m., were they blocking out the foyer light in order to give the impression in the foyer that it was...
I don't know what you mean, and no.
Nighttime. Media accounts spoke of shattered glass, but as we see from these early images, the glass doors going into the foyer were not shattered.
No, the glass doors going into the foyer do not appear to be shattered, but there were places in the foyer that you could have had glass shatter. As I said, probably most likely light fittings.
Examining the internal foyer images of the alleged aftermath, there is no...
Okay, this one's not so bad. In the background, you can see debris and people, but not close up and it's blurry, so maybe we get away with this one, I don't know. But this is why this is difficult for YouTube. But I can't necessarily see loads of big glass everywhere, but what I can see is lots of things that could be like there's big light fittings, there's glass panels, all that. I mean, I don't know where the glass may have been, but I'm saying above overhead light fittings, and I'm saying in a disaster situation like this, someone probably swept it aside. Like,
building damage or broken glass. A local from Manchester contacted me and commented, "The Manchester Arena event was fake. I have visited the arena numerous times and still no blast damage to be seen."
No blast damage to be seen. Well, it was a shockwave blast, wasn't it? So it damaged like the soft tissue of all the people and the easily damageable light fittings and stuff, but it didn't like demolish the walls, or like it's quite a big solid building and it's quite a big open space. So
No tradesmen and skips on site.
no skips, no.
Naturally, and the council cannot tell us who won the contract to repair a blast-damaged building.
No one needed to win the contract to repair the blast-damaged building. They would have assessed it and decided it didn't require repair as a massive building.
Evidence is missing. For comparison, here is an image of the 1998 Omar bombing in Northern Ireland.
Right, totally different kind of bomb, and it was a small brick building, and in a smaller space, it blew the whole fucking thing off.
Which killed a similar number, 29. This photograph shows a typical view of the foyer.
Massive open space.
Before an evening concert.
Lots of things that could go made out of glass, like the security cameras, these panels over here, these above overhead, there's a light there.
We note the prime advertising board against the far wall and matching prime advertising covering the window on the left-hand wall.
Yeah.
We note also the ceiling lights are usually on.
Yeah.
If we compare this image with a still from John Barr's video, we note that the prime advertising, which usually covers the window, has been covered with something else.
Or it might have come off because the glass behind it broke. And you might be seeing just like the adhesive behind it or something.
The ceiling lights are off, and there are blinds covering some of the windows.
Maybe they broke and they pulled the blinds down to cover the broken glass open window, and the ceiling light being off might be because it's smashed because of the pressure. That might be the broken glass. Don't know.
Was somebody trying to adjust the lighting conditions in the foyer?
No, I don't think they're trying to adjust the lighting conditions in the foyer. They'd have turned that big light on, wouldn't they?
To make it seem like nighttime in order to take pre-arranged photographs of an event they had planned for 10:31 p.m.
No, I don't think they were trying to make it look like it was dark outside. It does look like it's dark outside. And these do look like actual victims of the thing. I'm going to have to take this one and blur it. It's going to have to go through the Mac. I'm going to have to do an editing day tomorrow. A bit of editing. But no, I don't think so, Rich. And later on in your second video, you will agree that you don't even think this anymore either. So the problem with Rich has, in a big way, is that it's all right for him to say in the second video, no, changed my mind about that. But what about all these pieces of evidence that you thought fit that you're now going to change your mind about? That's a bit of an issue, isn't it? Doesn't it worry you that this is your, like, how do you explain away your being so incorrect about so many things? Does it trouble you in terms of your judgment going forward with other stuff?
If we now compare,
or looking back across other stuff,
the John Barr video with the still image, it looks like the still image might have been photoshopped.
No.
Look at the windows on the far left. There appears to be something brown covering the windows in John Barr's video. But in the still image, those windows look black. I think it is possible also that the windows which do not have blinds over them are covered with blackout material, preventing daylight entering the foyer.
Well, I'd also say the windows that look black, yeah, they don't look like there's anything reflecting on them because they might look completely blown out. They're blown out, in my opinion. That could be that. That could be where the glasses come from. That's why they look black, is because there's nothing in them. No reflecting. Rich Planet. So the reason I'm watching this, for anyone who's just joined in the stream, is Manchester Arena attack survivors win case against conspiracy theorist. Rich Planet has been taken to court, sued, and they won for saying that they weren't there. And the judge looked at a CCTV of the people he said weren't there being there and said, right, case over. They were there. They're on CCTV. Turns out CCTV is really good. Like, video evidence is really solid in court, apparently. So I'm just comparing, what he's got to say about it. And then this is a bit of a longer one. I'm not going to watch the whole of this, but I was watching a bit of this yesterday.
And intelligence agencies were routinely using false flag terrorism to control and manipulate public opinion and shape policy. Therefore, today, everyone should be open-minded about all terrorist incidents, to the possibility that they can, and sometimes...
Oh, don't get me wrong. Yeah, you should be completely open-minded about, about this stuff, yeah.
Are set...
But not so much. Your brain falls out, isn't it?
...up by the very agencies that are supposed to prevent terrorism. The City Room in the Manchester Arena, where the blast occurred at 22:31, is covered by 3 CCTV cameras. 2 of the cameras have fixed positions, and the third is movable into several set positions. The CCTV evidence that has been released by the public inquiry is far from comprehensive. The inquiry did not release continual footage from each camera leading up to the blast. They selected still images from particular cameras at selected times in order to help explain the narrative that they put forward. The movable camera's last position before the blast was probably as it is shown here, because this is the last image from that camera to be released before the blast occurred, taken at 22:28. The public inquiry did not produce a diagram showing the extent of the coverage from these 3 cameras. This oversight is revealing. Each camera has a blind spot immediately beneath it, because the cameras are mounted quite high above the ground. The 2 fixed cameras are mounted on a pillar at position C at the top, and the movable camera is mounted at position C at the bottom.
Right.
The blue lines show the approximate visual range of each of the 3 cameras.
The green area is the space which is not covered by a CCTV camera. This is blind space. Note that the merchandise stall is not covered by CCTV. This blind area was not discussed or highlighted at the public inquiry. According to the public inquiry, Salman Abedi, the terrorist perpetrator, waited...
So you've got the dude with his big... I mean, I'm assuming as well that we'll all agree that if they're going to do like a, you know, a fake one, then they'll get him on the camera with his big backpack, of course. But like, it's also the case that if it's a real one, you're going to get all this sort of actual evidence leading up to it. And you've got this. So...
in the city room for about an hour prior to setting off his device. He is seen here entering the city room at 21:33. He is alleged to have situated himself at the area at the top of the mezzanine stairs and was unseen to CCTV cameras in this position.
Yeah.
Because that area is obscured by a wall. The inquiry produced CCTV images showing that he went out of sight of cameras into position S at 21:33. After this point, he was not seen on CCTV again until 22:30, immediately before the blast.
Right.
The inquiry presented evidence showing that there were several witnesses who reported seeing Salman Abedi at or near position S during the hour before the blast.
This is fine.
They were Mohammed Agha, who saw him at 21:33 and earlier,
Loads
William
of people
Drysdale,
saw him,
who saw him at about 20...
Say 90 seconds.
Okay,
This
again,
is
I want
the
to just
inquiry
clarify
now.
the we's and I.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, you're saying we were all on the mezzanine and been there for some time, and you'd been there for 10 minutes before you saw him?
Yeah.
This dialogue shows that at 21:41 and 45 seconds, Abedi was not seen at position S, and Drysdale only became aware of him 10 minutes after he had climbed up the steps.
Yeah, so what you're saying is this guy's security, and he's tasked with watching out for people who are messing about with the merchandise stall and trying to sell fake merchandise and, you know, mess about. Like, he's not terrorist security necessarily, right? And he stood up on this mezzanine floor, and he's become aware of this lad that's sitting there with his bag. Oh, that's fine, isn't it? Like, he's looking around at all... It doesn't mean I walked up on the mezzanine floor, I didn't see him there immediately, therefore he's not there. It just means this guy's looking at all sorts of stuff, and at some point he becomes aware of someone who's sat... He could have been sat there the whole time. You know, keeping his head down, sat there down there, other people are walking past, it's busy. I don't see any problem with this.
This means that Abedi was not at position S at 21:41.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. It means this guy hadn't noticed him at position S until he noticed him.
1:45 and appeared at position S at around 21:52. From this information, there is a period of time from 21:33 to 21:52, which is 19 minutes, when Abedi was not observed on CCTV or by any known eyewitness.
So either he stayed there and was just there, or he went off to the toilet and came back or something, but did it without being seen on the CCTV or something. Like, well, I don't even know what your point is. My point is simply that it's most likely he was just there because people spotted him there before. Like, there's a 20-minute window where people don't... Like, you've got all these eyewitness accounts. They said they saw him at this time, at this time, at this time. And then there's 20 minutes where you haven't got an eyewitness that says they saw him. But that man didn't really pay much attention to him because he was just like, there's this... He's trying to remain inconspicuous. So most people weren't looking around for someone sat down in the corner by a bag. Most people were busy thinking about Ariana Grande and, like, you know, the stuff like that and collecting their loved ones and stuff. So most people just didn't notice him, but he was there for all that time because they've got loads of people who saw him all the way through. There's only a small window where people didn't claim to, like, what do you need? Someone to have seen him in that window and then it's fixed. 19-minute window. 19-minute window. Could he have just been sat there for 19 minutes being unnoticeable, not unnoticeable, but not really noticed?
Between 21:42 and 22:52, Drysdale did not see him at position S. Police radio communications have revealed that shortly after the explosion occurred, a member of the public reported to the police...
Or could Drysdale have been, you know, concerned with something else, maybe, while he was stood up there? Maybe he got up there to have a good look around over the whole arena concourse thing. You know, maybe he was up there on the steps having a good look around, and that meant that he wasn't really looking down here much, you know? And then after he had a good look around, no issue down here.
That they had observed an Asian male parking a grey Audi vehicle a few hundred metres from the arena, then run off towards the arena with a rucksack on his back.
We went through this just in the last video,
outside Land of Furniture on Cheetham Hill Road, shown in this aerial view. The time period when the Asian male was observed parking up shortly before the explosion is within the time period between 21:30 and 22:30.
Yeah.
So it is therefore entirely possible that during the 19-minute...
So we're repeating what we saw in the last video now about this car chase with this Asian male, and
run off in the direction of the arena.
It's the same bit. It's exactly the same as in the last video. It's just that now we're using the Google map slightly differently to show that, and we've got some footage of the actual road here.
Stand by when the offending vehicle's moved off. I've got an officer following it. 17:58.
So it's the same bit as in the last video.
However, there was no discussion by the inquiry about closing off Cheetham Hill Road or locking down a hotel or about the fact that the roadblock prevented a gold commander getting to the scene, and no further discussion about the apprehending of a suspect in a grey Audi. The issue was very quickly glossed over. The inquiry did not explore what happened to the Asian male driver after he was apprehended, or explain why he ran towards the arena wearing a rucksack. For obvious reasons, this is a serious omission.
Yeah. In a way, it's a serious omission. I mean, if he's innocent, though, hauling him in front of the public inquiry might not be that relevant Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a funny one because you want to know the truth. I get it. And you've got questions about this guy. I get it. But the public inquiry is to elucidate the truth about what happened regards to this actual terrorist incident, and everything that's involved with actually it happening gets put in front of the public inquiry. And the stuff that they investigated that wasn't, like, they said they investigated it and it's come to nothing. So we're not going to drag this man, his personal business and what he was doing and all that into the public inquiry. We're just going to say we looked at it and it's not worth putting in front of the public inquiry. I understand that, because otherwise you, like, the amount of time you'd spent on the public inquiry is everything that we looked at that wasn't the truth, as well as the truth. And you don't really want that, do you? You just want, let's just get to the truth. And if you thought that wasn't relevant or it didn't lead to anything or it wasn't, just leave that out then maybe. I mean, I'm not sure that proves anything, but...
After the inquiry listened to Dale Sexton's dictaphone evidence, Barrister Paul Greene QC summarised various points, completely leaving out any mention of the grey Audi incident.
From 11:16 p.m, the situation that you were dealing with became more complicated, perhaps even confused, because you were from that point faced with a report or even reports of another suspicious character or characters that needed to be dealt with. So there's a person spoken about near the cathedral, there's a thought that someone is going to Piccadilly, and you were also confronted with a discarded jacket near to the cathedral which was thought to be on top of something.
So he's saying it was made more difficult after the event because there were a number of false reports that people, quite rightly reporting things that they thought were suspect that you had to look into that led nowhere.
And therefore to be suspicious. So those were matters that complicated the situation you were dealing with, is that correct?
And a person in an Audi car?
And a person in an Audi car.
And a person in an Audi car.
Yes, sir.
Although that was quite short-lived, I think, wasn't it?
Although that was quite short-lived, meaning that was an inquiry that they got done because he went out in the car and he went around the block very quickly after the event. They got that done within the hour, but the other reports took them a bit longer to follow up on.
There was no further discussion about this issue after this point.
No, because he just brought it up and said there were all these things that got thrown up. You followed them up. None of these came to anything, including the person in the Audi car. Right, fine.
The radio communications reveal that the police were dealing with the Asian male in his grey Audi for about an hour and were highly concerned about it. In my opinion, Paul Greene's comment that the grey Audi incident was quite short-lived is an attempt to suppress critically important evidence which could confirm that Salman Abedi did not in fact commit suicide.
No, it's him explaining that they got that inquiry out of the way very early, and so it didn't complicate their further ongoing inquiries, really. The further ongoing complications was the person at the cathedral and this other thing that he said that took longer for them to follow up on.
I will make a general point here about the public inquiry. On a number of occasions, it is clear that Sir John Saunders is not closely involved with preparing the evidence or testimonies that were heard at the inquiry. The inquiry legal team seemed to know far more than he did about what evidence was being selected or redacted. It is my opinion that the inquiry...
As you would hope.
...legal team were deliberately omitting evidence, such as the evidence I have just shown, which would reveal the true nature of the whole event. I believe that Sir John Saunders was effectively being steered by the inquiry legal team so that he adhered to the official narrative which was set out at the start of the inquiry.
No, not steered, but the whole point of having this legal team and then this guy, I think, is that they filter the evidence so that they can present the most important and clear case. Not clear. It's not like a court case where you're trying to win and clear case like that. But we're trying to get to the truth and we're trying to make it clear. And it's a public inquiry and it's for on behalf of the public. This guy. I think it would be strange to sort of say that this guy has to dig through it all. Like, the whole point of it is they dig through it all and present it in this way. I think that's the whole point. Get a bit of music now and a beat. So I'll skip that.
All of a sudden, I was really, really hot and felt as if heat.
This warm gush of air hit me.
Warm gush of air, sorry. The warm gush of air, again, you get this shockwave, so I'm guessing that's what that feels like.
And I remember that it just felt really warm.
Describe an orange flash directly followed by a loud bang and a feeling of weight and pressure and heat. Is that accurate?
Pressure, so that's going to, yeah.
Yes, I think the bang came first.
Big ups Jojo Cretin for gifting a tier sub. We've got a hype train going. In chat. Thank you.
I could only see orange in my field of sight, so it felt like a flash.
Crack bang and a flash, and of course the impact, the energy, gave you a knock and smoke, like a pinky smoke.
And I would describe it, I've seen the film backdraft, but it was a big white flash. The first thing I remember...
Right, so what we're saying is a load of lay people who have no real experience of different explosives are describing their experience of this, and it falls right in line with the exact kind of... he's going to go on and say, well, this is the sort of thing, it could be a military flashbang, it could be a fake one. But no, that's a shockwave based...
Yeah. It was a bright flash.
Bright flash. Not like orange fire, not like the same sort of explosive nature they've seen on films with all the flames and everything, but it's just, they all describe the pressure. They describe it seems very consistent, actually.
Really bright.
Bang, loud.
Beth, where's the hype train? The hype train is at the top of the chat. It says to me, level 1 hype train, 62%. You've got 3 minutes to get to the next level by giving me gifts and subs and bits. And then you get more emotes. So it's just a thing that Twitch does.
Never heard of a flash.
Flash. The brightest flash I've ever seen in my life. Orange flash. Like a foil would give off. Like a fire would kind of go
We
off.
saw this in the last time.
Surrounding the room. Flames.
You're repeating yourself now, Rich.
May have acquired from somewhere else an entirely different type of device which was far less harmful or completely harmless to be used in the attack. The purchasing of the materials may have been done to construct a pre-planned fake narrative.
You think he went out and bought all this bomb stuff and then got given a sort of firework and went and set that off instead and left all this stuff like as evidence? He had a micro anyway, look, a Nissan Micro. He's not driving an Audi, is he? Where's he getting an Audi from? He's got a micro. Again, this sort of contradicts what you're saying. I think this looks like the actual evidence for someone constructing that exact thing. Big up Star Rays for the tippies. That's pushed us up to 65% on the hype train. Big up Star Rays. Thank you for the bitties.
High heels on my tippies.
In my previous film...
Okay, in your previous film, and this is, again, probably going to have to be blurred out for YouTube.
I suggested that these images of the city room were probably taken in the morning.
It's nothing awful. It's just people lying down and a little bit of what looks like blood on the floor, but it's too bad for YouTube.
Some sort of drill or preparation.
I mean, it is awful because they've been through a lot, haven't they, those people, and they're in a state of crisis, but like it's not like you can see anything gruesome.
Which has been released since I made that film, has led me to suspect that these images may, in fact, have been taken shortly after the time of the blast. The evidence is conflicting, as the timestamp on the crisp...
And he says that he agrees now that these pictures...
In my previous film, I suggested that these images of the city room were probably taken in the morning in some sort of drill or preparation. CCTV evidence, which has been released since I made that film, has led me to suspect that these images may, in fact, have been taken shortly after the time of the blast. The evidence is conflicting, as the timestamp on the Chris Parker image clearly shows a much earlier time. But I'm going to go with the official narrative here that these images were taken shortly after the blast.
Right. So now you're going to go with the official narrative that these images were taken shortly after the blast. Can you now explain to me how this window has got the daylight outside it that you said it had, and how these windows have been blinds put on them and that thing's been changed to make it look like it's dark and it's not, and why the light's been turned off to try and change? Like, you can't have it both ways, can you? So I agree with what you said, like this is all happened after the blast, but the problem you've got now, Rich, is that you think that this window is like, you know, I think it was a reflection and I think it's easy to explain, but you're now going to say not only were you wrong about, well, just the time stamping these pictures, really. So I'm happy to go and change that. That's fine, and say these pictures were after the blast. But all your other logic, you built up a whole case for why these pictures were after, and all those things are all wrong, yeah? So if that's all wrong, then is it possible that you're just generally wrong about stuff all the time? Because there's quite a lot of things you were wrong about here. The reflection, the dark things, I'm saying the lights, the glass of the lights, you know, all sorts of stuff, not just the timestamp. So thank you, Red Fan, for the 100 bitties. We're now at 96% of the hype train with 2 seconds to go. I should have spotted earlier. Oh,
High heels on my tippies.
you still got the hype train's gone now. Better luck next time, but you still got right up to 96%. So well done, everyone.
No building damage can be seen in this image. The merchandise stall is completely intact.
Well, I don't know about the merchandise store being completely intact. I can't see all of it.
Images taken also show that windows were not shattered by the blast.
The exterior.
This image does not show convincing evidence of an injury or death.
Yes, it kind of does.
Although a firm conclusion cannot be drawn from these images alone about whether the victims pictured are real or staged, the images are consistent with a drill or an exercise.
Okay, they could be just pretend lying down. That could always be the case in all images of tragedy. They might not have all been going in that gas chamber. They could have been acting in the war. Yeah, no, I don't think though.
Public inquiry did produce photographs showing building damage, for example.
And if it's just
to the blue and white doors seen in these pictures. However, none of that damage can be seen in these images.
Who's flecking all the blood around?
Which were taken much earlier than the crime scene images produced at the inquiry. For comparison, here's a picture of the Omar bomb, which killed a similar number of people. Victim Ruth Morell was featured in a Sky News programme on the 23rd of the 5th, 2017, and she said the following to the Queen.
Myself and my daughter's friend were waiting, and my daughter's friend's mum, and she died.
The CCTV images show that between 22:19 and 22:28, that Ruth Morell was indeed waiting with her daughter's friend's mum.
Yeah, Ruth was waiting with her friend's mum.
Michelle Kiss. And fast forward to 22:28. we see Ruth Morel and Michelle Kiss still standing together.
Mm-hmm.
But the next image, 2 minutes later, Michelle Kiss has gone, and Ruth Morel is now standing on the steps with her daughter.
Yeah.
Go forward again. This image is 1 second before the blast. Where is Michelle Kiss? She says in her statement, myself and my daughter's friend's mum, we were waiting. Michelle Kiss isn't there. This is 1 second before the blast.
Presumably, she's closer to the site of the blast now.
Ruth Morel speaks here about her injury.
And what happened to you?
I had one of the rings as well, shrapnel wounds, so nuts and bolts that everybody's seems to be having. Mine's gone through 15 centimetres out the other side, so I'm doing surgery later on this afternoon. So, yeah, but feeling okay about it, because when you see these young children, you just think, oh, goodness, need to get a grip here and sort of battle on. They just inspire you.
Yes, that's brilliant.
2 images of her alleged injury after it had healed.
Again, for YouTube, probably I'll just,
shown on the ITV News website. These.
If you can't see this on YouTube because I blurred it, which I probably will, it's just a image of quite a large looking, like golf ball sized hole on 2 sides of a leg that is now healed. It looks like a piece of shrapnel's gone through someone's leg.
Images do appear to show that something has gone through this leg and out the other side. However, in the camera phone video filmed by John Barr shortly after the blast, Ruth Morel is seen walking perfectly normally without any sign of pain or a limp.
Well, she doesn't seem to be walking perfectly normally. And, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to show this on YouTube, whether I'm going to be able to show that little clip of her walking, but because there's a lot of debris behind her, human debris. But she looks like she's in shock from having just seconds ago, been in a quite serious incident. So you would think that you would hobble away and do what, like, I've seen people who have been quite badly injured and they just run it, and eventually, like, unless you're, like, you know, this has gone through her muscles, so her leg still works. Like, it's painful and it's hurty, but her leg still works, and she's going to do anything and everything she can to just move away from that danger because she's in absolute shock and the adrenaline dump.
With a dark red patch on her right leg where the injury is supposed to have occurred. She places her full weight on each foot and shows no sign whatsoever of a limp or an injury.
She looks like
she would
she's
not be
hobbling
able
on
to
it.
walk normally as she is seen doing if she had just sustained the injury shown here.
No, I think she'd be able to walk like that for about a minute and a half, and then the adrenaline dump would, like, I think initially the adrenaline dump would kick in and you'd just do it. And then after that, you'd be like, oh my God, and you'd sit down and it'd be really difficult.
Video evidence is much stronger than witness testimony and should take primacy over the things she said verbally about her injury. I will point out here that...
And she's probably more concerned for the welfare of others. And there's stuff going on in her head here that's keeping her away from thinking about her hurty leg.
The Ruth Morel injury is the only picture of an injury within the city room that I have been able to find. The one victim we have where we can see the injury...
So earlier you said there were no victims that you could see. Obviously there are a load of people lying around in the background. Yeah. Like, and in this image you can't really see them properly, so I think this is okay for YouTube. But in the background there are a lot of people that are injured. But you're saying this is the only one that you can actually see, like proper closer up. So that's your problem with it. But before you said you couldn't see any. But now there's one that you can see, but it's not real enough for you, so we can't see that one. It doesn't count.
To be fake. Another alleged victim, Amy Barlow, is featured in 3 videos shortly after the blast.
Alleged victim.
In the first video, she is seen run...
Like some child would be involved in a psyop. Because you can trust children to keep their mouths shut about things and never say, and like a child would be a child actor in a psyop.
Down the Victoria Station steps, fleeing from the blast scene.
Right, she's running away, yeah? You can sort of see her over there.
She
running
runs down the steps, showing no sign of an injury or...
Well, I can't really see no sign of an injury. I can just see that she's coming down the steps.
Or a limp, and without any blood dripping onto the floor.
She's not running as fast as these chuffers.
In the second video, she is seen walking briskly out...
Not brisk, like her left leg, her right leg seems to have a little bit of a wobble on it.
The Victoria train station entrance, again, with no sign of any blood.
No sign of blood, no, but she's wearing really dark black trousers. I mean, it's kind of like these Ugg boots, so her heels and feet don't seem to be... She doesn't seem to be running like everyone else. Or is she the one behind,
And in the third video, sometime later, she is seen sitting on a wall outside the Victoria Station, when what looks like large amounts of blood appear to start dripping from her legs.
Okay, well, at some point, we might get too much for YouTube here, so we'll just see what goes on. It's okay at the moment. And then there's a little drip of blood there, so at this point it'll get too much for YouTube, but more blood will come from underneath her trousers, and it's very obvious that you can see down the bottom here that what's happened is while she's walking, it's gone down her boots and sort of pulled in her boots. That's what's really obvious to me. So now that she's sat with her leg up, the blood might start to appear on the floor more, but it's just gone down her trousers, like it's soaked downwards, look. You can see it.
Which leg is it? This one. Tie up, t-shirt, t-shirt. Don't take nothing off.
If she had been injured with shrapnel, the bleeding would have started immediately.
It did. That's why there was so much blood.
She was running. Blood would have spilled onto the floor. This evidence suggests she may have been using a device to create the effect of bleeding in the third video. We have here on video 2 victims exhibiting what appear to be fake injuries.
But you said if there were no injuries and you couldn't see any, but now you've seen them, you're just saying they're fake. It appears to me that there are 2 legitimate injured victims and you just can't take it. But you were quite happy to change your mind about that video and film and photograph being taken before or after the event, and now you don't think that your critical thinking skills are impaired for this. Like with the girl on the right, there's loads of people in the street. Like this one's still in the arena, but she's on the street outside. So like if you're going to fake this sort of stuff, it'd either be really convincing so everyone on the street just believed it, but if anything went wrong with your psyop, like, you know, she's out on the street in the public, it's out of control. I think it's more likely she's just run out from the event and is hurt than not.
Due to the lack of photographic evidence of any genuine injury situated within the arena.
Listen, that's not because I'm some corporate shill. It's because sometimes everything's not a conspiracy. Like the reasons why that guy went and blew the thing up, you might want to question that more. You know, his motivations and what motivates those people to do it and where they get their ideas from and all that. Like, oh, you can have all sorts of political discussions and, you know, Illuminati discussions on that if you want. I'd say that lightly with a bit of a joke, but you know what I mean. But the actual facts of whether this device happened and these people were injured, I think that's almost like, even from my own sitting room, irrefutable. I do trust the British public and the media to a certain extent. And when I say the media, I mean, like, I obviously don't trust them in general because they're agenda setting, political aligned nonsense. But when it comes to reporting of a thing like this, gathering up multiple reports from multiple places and presenting them, like that's what sort of happened here. And there's lots and lots of different reports. A lot of the time, like he said, there were no public people on their phones. He said no videos have been, everyone had a phone, didn't he? In the first video he did, he said everyone had a phone and no one recorded anything. Well, these are people recording things on their phones. So, you know, you can get stuffed with that. Like, oh, but they set that all up for the psyop. Oh, well, then everything's a fucking fake then, isn't it? You know, I don't know. It's easy to say from your own armchair that it's all fake, isn't it? But like, this guy's trying to prove it, and he ain't making much of a case as far as I'm concerned.
It is a reasonable assumption to make that if 2 of the victims were exhibiting fake...
Big ups me Green for the 100 Doritos.
High heels on my tippies.
...injuries, that some others, or all of the other victims, may have been exhibiting fake injuries as well. The following is a list of 28 people who were in the city room, or it is claimed were in the city room, but little or no evidence, apart from some verbal testimony, has been shown to show that they were in fact harmed. Note, I am not saying they were all definitely not harmed. I am saying I have not found convincing evidence that any of them were harmed. I have identified 10 of the 28 people from this list within CCTV images at times shortly before the blast. We see Jordan Beek, Dave Middleton, Daniel Perry, Sarah...
So they were all there then?
...Nellist, Kim McEwen, Izzy Aaron, and Joe Aaron in this image 1 second before the blast. We see Mohammed Agha in this image 1 second before the blast, and we see Barbara Whittaker and Andrea Bradbury in this image 3 minutes before the blast.
It's like he's proving his own... It's like he's proving the opposite of what he's trying to prove.
The diagram shows the approximate positions of those 10 people at the time of the blast. Note, there are 18 more people from the list who are not in this diagram, some of whom may have been situated in the CCTV blind spot, which is very close to the blast area.
Right. The emergency service response, I mean, obviously we're seeing that this is all falling apart for him. I want to skip on to a little bit of the emergency service response, but again, this is an hour long and he's done another video after this. I'm not going to go any further than this, but the emergency service response, I think this point really makes it as well.
Paddy Ennis was the first paramedic to arrive at the scene. In his inquiry interview, he claims but does not seem sure that he was at the scene by 22:42.
Listen, this guy's the first guy on the scene, yeah? So he would have logged when he arrived, but, you know, he doesn't... He's arrived soon on the scene. He's probably close to the scene because they probably have people, paramedics, near the scene of a great big concert, don't they? So he's arrived, and his job, as we learned with the Nicola Buddy case, when controlling a big thing like this, is not to get in and put his hands on people. Like, he might be the first person on the scene, yeah? So you might think he's in there with the tourniquets and put a bandage on that and get that one over there and assess everyone. He's not doing that. What he has to do is he has to set up a chain of emergency service response. He has to control a situation by setting up a chain until someone else comes along and says, I'm in charge of the operational situation now. You can go and start dealing with people. You can't do that. It's not all good enough. Like if he goes in the room and says, all right, I'm here now, I'll start doing a tourniquet, then there's lots of other stuff that needs doing that he's not doing. And the next paramedic turns up and says, what am I supposed to do? Like he's the one that's there at the moment saying, right, okay, you do this, you do that. I need people here, I need that. And like until someone else relieves him of that position, that's his job. So I think Rich is really confused about this. But
this appears to be incorrect because he is first seen on CCTV outside of the Victoria Station at 22:50. He then walks into the Victoria Station at 22:50 and 22 seconds. There is another CCTV image of him at 22:52 and 48 seconds on the bridge, which leads into the city room. Therefore, he would have arrived in the city room at 22:53,
right,
which is 22 minutes after the blast.
22 minutes after the blast, first paramedic. Seems like a long time, that does.
This means there were no paramedics at the scene until 22 minutes after the blast.
But there were first aid responders in the emergency services. The police arrived there very quickly, and I'm assuming the people that work there have first aid training. And so my assumption is that that place where all the bomb went off is not going to be necessarily the focus of the triage, is it? Like people are going to have been moved from there, ambulances will have been called. So it's not that everyone's just lying on the ground waiting for this guy to turn up and deal with them. My guess is that the initial response for the health and getting people out would have been done police and ambulances. So, yeah.
At the public inquiry, Paddy Ennis stated that he did not go into the city room to treat any patients.
He didn't go in to treat any patients. Of course not. There's people there. The police are already, there's all sorts of people there. The scene is already happening. He's turning up and he's not going to go in there and start putting tourniquets on people, no.
And when you went into the city room, was it to obtain further information, to treat any casualties who might be there, or a combination of the two, or something else?
It was to, it wasn't to treat casualties because that wouldn't have been appropriate at that stage based on my role, but it was to gain situational awareness in order to be able to pass that information back and then to potentially then take one of the strategic roles, i.e. operational commander, until I was relieved of that role.
At 23:01, Paddy Ennis is seen on CCTV leaving the city room and walking back down to the Victoria Station. Therefore, he only spent just over 7 minutes in the city room and did not treat any patients while he was there.
Fine, yeah, as he says, he's gone there, he's assessed the situation, they've said, this is what's going on here. My guess is some people have gone down to the station who are quite poorly.
He is then seen on CCTV back in the city room at 23:05.
It's gone back up.
Two more paramedics, Christopher Hargreaves and Lee Vaughan, are seen on CCTV arriving in the city room at 23:15, which is 44 minutes after the blast.
Okay.
In total, there were only 3 paramedics attended the scene, the first attending 22 minutes after the blast without treating anyone, and the other 2 attending 44 minutes after the blast.
So I think what Rich is trying to drive at here is that the paramedics didn't turn up and treat people, therefore there weren't any poorly people after this bad bomb. But what actually is more likely is that the really poorly people were taken out immediately on probably stretchers and homemade stretchers, and people probably, members of the public did their best. And emergency response would have included ambulances, maybe even in the back of the odd police car. This is a pure guess, but, the most seriously injured would have been taken to hospital immediately, and ambulance response would have been responsible for that sort of thing. And then other people that were more, I want to say minor, it's not minor, is it? But, serious but minor. Like that girl we just saw a minute ago who was out on the street. Like she was out on the street asking for an ambulance to be called. So these 3 turning up in the arena aren't going to be helping her either. I would think most of the people, probably most of the people who were seriously injured, who required hospital attention, were being treated by other sorts of services, whether it be police, security, ambulances, and that these paramedics, as they described, were there to sort of oversee a chain of getting people out, getting them to the ambulances, making sure walkways are clear, there's people in the train station who need first aid, let's gather them there then, instead of if there's a bomb gone off in the arena, you're not going to want everyone to gather in the foyer, are you? Because there might be another bomb. So you've got other aspects about the the police and everyone that's working at the time are not just saying, right, this one bomb has gone off, therefore that's it for today, let's just deal with this. They're worried that other things might happen. So gathering people in different areas and keeping people moving and all this sort of stuff, it's all really important. So these 3 people are not on the scene treating people and putting on tourniquets and stuff, no. And I wouldn't expect them to be. As they've described, they turn up 20 minutes, 40 minutes after the first event, and they're not even, it doesn't say they're the first paramedics. It doesn't say they're not there's not other first aid people or ambulances involved, does it? So
The Bronze Commander paramedic, Dan Smith, did not go to the scene in the city room, but directed operations from the Victoria Station concourse downstairs.
sensible.
The reason given as to why only 3 paramedics attended the scene was because the city room had been declared a hot zone and therefore not safe.
Fair enough.
The 2 paramedics who went into the city room after Paddy Ennis were specialist trained, HART, Hazardous Area Response Team, which is why only they were permitted to go in.
Makes sense.
Despite there being a further 4 HART-trained paramedics who had arrived at the Victoria Station. This seems farcical because many unarmed British Transport Police and Greater Manchester police officers who are not hazardous area trained entered the city room during this time.
Well, the police have got a different remit, different responsibilities and obligations, and the other 4 people that were there at the time didn't need to go in. They were probably just sitting around having a cigarette then. No, they were probably quite busy with the quite poorly people who have been removed from that area because it's a dangerous area where a bomb has gone off.
Paramedic Simon Butler arrived at the arena in an ambulance at 23:10 and was present at the Victoria Station helping with victims until around 2:30 in the morning. Therefore, he was present attending to victims for over 3 hours. He was asked by the inquiry about the patients being brought down on makeshift stretchers to the Victoria Station concourse.
Is it correct that there were patients you saw that brought down that had not had any tourniquets applied to them?
Yes, there was patients that didn't have tourniquets.
Of course, there were patients that didn't have tourniquets. Not everyone's going to need a tourniquet.
But that doesn't imply they necessarily needed them.
No.
Were the people who you thought just visually needed them but hadn't had them, or can't you really say?
I don't remember seeing anybody in the concourse area that had a large active bleed.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's hard for you to say, like, isn't it? Like, a large active bleed in the... Like, what does that even... I don't know why Rich is bringing this up as a point, but I would suggest that's probably acceptable for him to say that. Like, the ones that have... Like, he was there for 3 hours, so I'm assuming those that had large active bleeds, like he said, these were people coming through. He was monitoring, keeping things, you know, get this one on a stretcher, get them into there. Like, he's not...
Would it be fair to say that from the witnesses, the casualties you do
Like, maybe when you get them into the hospital, you start cutting off their clothes, you start monitoring these large active, you know... And
describe, you were able to see evidence that there had been significant bleeding from their clothing?
Yes, there had obviously been significant bleeding from the clothing, and I saw blood on the floor in the concourse area, but I didn't see a patient actually actively bleeding.
So he said there's lots of blood on the floor, there's lots of blood on the clothes, but he didn't actually see them actively bleeding. So what's happening here is that Richard D. Hall is going to say, well, he hasn't saying, you know, he's putting this together in this video to point towards, you've got lots of fake blood, but no actual injuries. That's what he's sort of saying, isn't it? But that's not what's consistent with these sort of injuries. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever had, like, it's a bit of a gruesome story, but once upon a time, my dog bit my toe off. Like, it's kind of the truth. So I had this difficult dog, and it was about 4 a.m. I'd been playing Xbox all night, and he was in his bed, and I went to go and switch off the light, which was over the top of his bed, and I sort of stood on near, quite close, too close to his foot, to on his bed, and he bit my toe. It was fucking bad when he bit my toe. I wonder if there was been a dog biscuit that moment had gone under the sofa as well, and he was eggy about that. Anyway, he bit my toe, and like, it was bad, and he like, argh, and it was, my bone was still attached, but all the rest of the toe wasn't. Really bad. So I went upstairs and I put it in the bath. I had a sock on. This is my point, right? I had a sock on, and so I couldn't see at all what was wrong with my foot. My sock was all draining all blood, and I had to go in the bath, take off my sock, put it under the tap, you know. But until I took off the sock, I couldn't see at all the gruesome nature of my injury. And that was a funny one as well, because we had to go to the hospital at 4 a.m. and have it sewn back on. And the doctor on call, whoever, he got all the nurses in as well, and they all like he was like, come and look at this. Come and look at this. It was one of them. And he had to sort of do like if I pull it this way and then sew it there, but how about if I pull this and I don't know, maybe you have to attach it to that. And it was like a puzzle he had to put back together. Good old days. It was my difficult dog. Like, obviously I was good with him as an owner, don't worry. Like, he didn't have any problems with me, but I got him because he'd had a hard time. So as he got older and a bit more nuts, he got a bit more difficult sometimes. He obviously felt scared and like walked into a corner, and like he didn't know I was going to go to the light switch instead of standing over his bed and whatever. Anyway, I don't blame him, and I didn't like get cross with him. I just, ow, my toe. Anyway, the point being is that this is quite reasonable for this paramedic who is overseeing the people coming in on stretchers, getting into ambulances, that he might not be physically seeing open wounds, because everyone was wearing their clothes. And as we saw from that lady who walked past in the image, who had quite a bad leg, it looks like just blood on the clothes.
So, for a period of 3 hours, Directly dealing with victims, Simon Butler did not witness any patient actively bleeding. Several paramedics specifically stated that they did not treat anyone.
So did you actually treat any of these casualties?
No, I did not.
No, and you shouldn't, should you? Because your job is to, like, as they've said, set up this almost like chain of people so that they can get them in the ambulances, get them off to the hospitals where they will be treated, and maybe in the ambulances they'll be treated, but on the scene, on the ground, paramedics are not going to be having people on the ground, getting them get the clothes off. It's not like the movies. They want to get them in the ambulance in a sterile environment to do that. As quick as we can get them on the ambulances, please. Not let's start cutting all their clothes off on the concourse of the train station.
I think you've described in your witness statement that you didn't need to provide any direct hands-on medical assistance to any casualty.
Yes, I mean...
And as we've described, some of them are coming down on makeshift stretchers. That immediate first aid, that, oh my God, I need a tourniquet. Like, he didn't see many people with tourniquets that needed them, but many people could have done the basic first aid for people, and they could be already in that situation. So these people didn't need to do this.
And that's very much by design, but if there were, in that initial walk round, if there's an initial one where we think, well, actually, we're so short at the moment that we haven't yet reached enough resources to manage the immediate life-saving, then I would assist in the immediate life-saving. But when we get to the established command and control system, I should not really be doing that.
And just so we're clear then, in terms of having been asked by Mr. Smith to treat and triage, what does that role mean to you, and what do you be expected to do once you went through, please?
You would be expected to do a preliminary triage of the patients that have been brought down, or a secondary triage now of their status. Now they've been brought down to the train station, of what category the patients were at that point.
And so in doing that, what is physically involved that you have to undertake as the triage officer?
Checking a respiratory rate and a heart rate and their conscious level, and then triage accordingly to the patient's condition.
So no, she gives a really basic answer, but it's obvious, isn't it? Like, if you've ever been to the hospital, I've been there, even with that thing with my foot. Like, when in triage, before you go into the main bit, and in triage, you sit down with the nurse, and she says, "What's wrong with you then?" And you say, "Oh, it's fucking my foot. The dog's bit my foot." And she goes, "Let's have a look at it." And then you sat back down for a bit. "Okay, we'll call you through in a minute. Or wait here, we'll call you through." But she's there to assess what needs to be done. She, could be a he. Why am I being sexist? It's just that when I was there was a woman sat in front of me, looking at my foot. But the triage nurse is there to assess, so you then go through to the right person. She doesn't then start washing it, get you a plaster, then we'll go through to the doctor. That's what the next bit is for. So that's the whole point being made here.
Can I ask, was there an issue with pain relief for the patients? Was there sufficient analgesia available for those patients in the casualty clearing area?
I remember getting some morphine for a crew from another ambulance crew, but I don't recall any issues being brought to my attention of pain relief required, apart from when advanced paramedic had turned up to speak to me regarding ketamine.
So somebody needed some pain relief and some morphine, but like, what then? Again, is it the question here is that because people weren't crying out for pain relief, then nobody was really hurt? Or is it that everyone's lying around in shock trying to get in an ambulance? And like, the idea of running around with some paracetamol and, measuring people's pain tolerance is not on top of the priorities list when it comes to life-saving. Okay, it's hurty, but we'll get you in the ambulance, we'll get you on the gas and air, but fucking put up with it for a second. Everyone's hurty. Like, so, yeah, so Richard, that's only, I couldn't get through to film 3 and 4. Like, that was film 2, I think we were watching there. He's, I don't know if film 3 exists anymore because obviously he's been to court. And he's got a statement about the court case on his website, so we'll have a look at that. Legal action against Richard D. Hall. I'll read this through for you and we'll talk about it briefly. And then that's my video on YouTube for Manchester attack survivors win case against conspiracy theorist Richard D. Hall, who, I've said it in the past, I've done the Madeleine McCann stuff about it, no bones about this. His Madeleine McCann stuff was really good. He was very thorough and he went and left no stone unturned. Really good. And then since then, I went away from watching his content when he started going on about aliens and other stuff. And he started his own web like, this is 12 years ago on YouTube we're talking about. He started his own website, gone his own way, and I haven't gone with him on that. And this is where he is now, and it seems quite out there to me. But this is his statement. Legal action against Richard D. Hall. I, Richard D. Hall. I, Richard D. Hall, appeared at High Court hearing on Monday, 29th of January, 2024. The hearing was to determine the outcome of the claimant's application to accept without question the official narrative of the Manchester bombing, and thus prevent me from presenting any evidence which challenges the official narrative at a trial. So what it means is, as the judge said, we'll take the claimant's evidence first, and if it's good, we won't bother listening to your side, Rich. We're not going to let you use the court to parade your conspiracy nonsense and at the end say, no, it's nonsense. We're just going to decide it's nonsense straight away. The judgment can be found here. Dun, dun, dun. Hang on, I've got a button for that. The judgment can be found here. Got a button for that. It's not working. Where's my camera? There you go. Got a button for that. Recognise that sound effect? Heard that on somebody's video the other day. Copyright free sound effect. Anyway, there's the judgment. Look how big it is. I'm not reading that. It says it in the news for me. They won the bid to sue him. The judge said they win. I'll make some points about the hearing. Well, Richard will. Point 1 about the hearing. At the hearing, I presented video evidence which was filmed at the scene. Hang on. Is the music still going? Where's my background music? It's probably just gone quiet for a minute, hasn't it? Where's my background music? Forget it. At the hearing, I presented video evidence which was filmed at the scene of the Manchester incident. In the city room, filmed 4 minutes after the blast, it showed a woman, Ruth Morell, walking without impairment or any visual injury. Well, she did have a visual injury, who it was claimed had a nut or bolt travel all the way through her leg. I mean, you couldn't see it because of the trousers, but... And out the other side, I also showed the merchandise store completely intact. Intact, 2 words there. Which, it's supposed to be 1 word, Rich. Which was just yards from the blast and in direct line of sight. This evidence is not specifically referred to in this judgment and was not shown in the public inquiry. I also showed images at the hearing of the city room shortly after the blast, showing that no visible building damage was caused and no blood is visible on the floor and windows were not broken, etc. Although the pictures we saw, which I'm going to have to try and blur out for the YouTube upload, they did seem to have visible blood on the floor and there was missing windows, I'd say. This evidence is also not specifically mentioned in the judgment. The evidence is first-hand video and CCTV evidence from the crime scene. Point 2, none of the CCTV evidence which is relied upon by the claimants, which would demonstrate they were present at the arena, has been released by the public inquiry, to my knowledge, and has not been seen by the court nor by myself. So the actual CCTV of them being there has not been made public and he's not seen it, and apparently nor has the court. I submitted an application to the court to have this CCTV evidence released. I submitted a second application to the court to have the 2017 medical records of the claimants released for a surgeon to view. I first requested the medical records in January 2023. Both the applications have been rejected in this judgment. I don't know about the CCTV, why that would necessarily be rejected, but I can understand why people's medical records wouldn't be provided to you. With regard to CCTV evidence, what relied upon were statements made by 2 people who claim to have seen the evidence, but no footage or images have been provided. I mean, do I have to go and read the actual judgment? Because what I was led to believe was that the judge saw the CCTV, it stills, made his judgment based on CCTV stills. I mean, it's quite long, isn't it? It also says, for these reasons, I find the defendant has not charged the evidential burden which rests on him. He has no real prospect, indeed no prospect at all of success in the issues. It's not just that it's the CCTV, it's that you haven't managed to make your case properly. But maybe you're going to say, they wouldn't let me make my case properly. Alleged inconsistencies and anomalies in the publicly available evidence concerning the Manchester bombing have been put forward by the defendant at great length and in great detail in his book and in other publications. Exhibit RDH, section headed Evidence which refutes the official Manchester narrative and justifies independent investigation. Subheadings include blah, 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 blah. They all tend to the same conclusion, which is that the Manchester bombing was a staged, fake event. Claimants were complicit. I will not repeat other epithets that I've already applied to this hypothesis. Suffice it to only add the defendant's points are directed towards evidence not actually relied upon by these claimants, and they do not answer or cast any serious doubt on that evidence. Like, basically he's saying, going on and on about it all being fake doesn't change the fact these people were there and they have injuries. I'm looking for the bit about the CCTV, but here in this, in the judge ruled, it says CCTV stills showed the pair who had tickets at the concert. That's what it says in the news report. It simply states it. CCTV stills showed the pair who had tickets at the concert. So I don't know if it says that in the judgment, but Richie's saying they don't have that. Point 3, I spoke about many other evidential points, some of which are explored in my films, and also the BBC's actions against me in relation to the timing of the claim. That's what the judge said, is none of that has any bearing on this. I'm awaiting a copy of the hearing transcript. God, this goes on. Have I got to read all this? He's complained to the BBC about their article. The article implies I lost the case, which is not true. It also fails to mention any of my arguments. It says Manchester attacker survivors win case. It doesn't say you lost the case. It says they won it. I said he lost it earlier, so maybe I should reverse those words. I'll reverse those words now in the same broadcast. I don't think he lost it. I think they won it in case he tries to sue me. Emlyn Jones was present and posted this account, slightly modified. Look at this. Can I get this in text to speech, do you think? You do it for me.
Richard D. Hall has appeared in court, and I went along to support him and report on proceedings. The case was held at one of the highest courts in the land, the Royal Courts of Justice in London. I got there early to maximize my chances of getting a seat in the public gallery. I was also worried that Mariana Trench would bring in a gang of her deep-sea bottom feeders from the BBC to hog them all.
What?
As it turned out, she never even showed up. As it was, so many people were there, all on Richard's side, that some couldn't get a seat. My good friend and comrade Dr. Nick Collerstrom was there, and I should have guessed he would be. He is an ace at analyzing legal dramas. The Royal...
So everyone from Richard's group of conspiracy nutters. Uh-oh, I could get sued for that, couldn't I? I'm not saying that. Change that. It's a joke. I'm having a joke on YouTube. Fair comment on YouTube. But his group all turned up, and the important people from the mainstream who were trying to shut him down or whatever, they didn't care. They didn't bother to show up. They just don't care.
The Royal Courts of Justice was built in the 1870s and is a grand and striking building, but I think ugly and intimidating. It has a very bad energy. It reminds me of Dracula's castle or Barad-dûr. The courtroom itself was quite small, and the public gallery was mixed in with the council benches. The security at the main entrance was similar to that at an airport. I had to empty my pockets and step through a metal detector.
Yeah, welcome to visiting the court on your school trip. Can you tell us what happened in the courtroom, really? That's what you're here to report on.
I had to empty my pockets and step through a metal detector. All potential weapons cannot be taken into the courts.
You think?
Including sharpened spikes, no doubt. Richard turned up dressed in a dapper grey suit with waistcoat.
Looking great.
The first time I haven't seen him wearing brown or black.
What? So you know all about what he wears normally? This is a bit of a...
Richard turned up dressed in a dapper grey suit with waistcoat. The first time I haven't seen him wearing brown or black.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how he would react to my presence because, as you know, he and I have had our differences.
Right.
But he greeted me warmly and thanked me for coming.
Knew you.
He had no barrister with him and was defending himself.
Vinicum style.
He had no barrister with him and was defending himself, typical of his style. His counsel was a Mackenzie friend who is a retired solicitor.
Interesting stuff. Let's get the second paragraph here. So this is written by somebody else other than Rich. So, you know, impartial, basically, isn't it? In a way. I love it. The hearing only lasted an hour. This is exactly like same thing with Alan. Is I think that when it gets to his court case, he thinks it's going to be all rumpole of the Bailey, but it's going to be very formulaic and very, regimented formula. The judge is going to know what's going on. People are going to know what's going on. It's not going to be hours for you to spiral out of control with all your nonsense.
The hearing only lasted about an hour and 3/4 and was actually quite simple. I didn't take down any written notes because I wasn't sure how it would look to do so, but I didn't need to really. This was not Richard's trial, just a preliminary hearing establishing the rules of the future full trial, but it is vitally important as I explain here. The claimant's barrister began by explaining why he thinks all Richard's evidence should be struck from the record. This was, he said, because all the facts of the Manchester Arena attack have been established by other proceedings such as the Manchester Arena inquiry.
I love it. So Richard D. Hall was of the impression that he could go into the court and sort of present his case about the Manchester Arena attacks being fake, and that therefore he's got a case where he's explaining his point of view in regards to these people not being there. Unfortunately for Rich, the courts have a system, and the inquiry is quite an important legal proceeding. So that supersedes Richard coming in and saying, I've got this and I've got that. If you had this and that, maybe it should have been put forward and the inquiry should have taken it into account. And, because you've already had your chance to do all that, and that's happened, and you've had the inquiry now. And like the inquiry, it's the same with Nicola Bull in a way, inquiry takes legal supersedence now, doesn't it? And we can't sort of X, Y, Z. But I feel for Rich in a way here because of that, looking at the Nicola Bull stuff. But it feels like it's that legal system thing where if you represent yourself, you don't know this, but if you did know this, you would have known this, and the judge don't care about what you've got to say. There's been an inquiry.
This was, he said, because all the facts of the Manchester Arena attack have been established.
The opposing barrister is arguing this point.
This was, he said, because all the facts of the Manchester Arena attack have been established by other proceedings such as the Manchester Arena inquiry. He also provided some reports from Martin and Eve Hibbert's doctors. The facts don't need to be disputed because the facts are legally agreed upon already. That was the purpose of the inquiry. Richard countered by saying that the facts were not all agreed upon. In fact, 28% of the public say they think the real truth about the Manchester Arena bombing is being kept from the public.
Doesn't matter how many percent of the public you can pretend to bring up a statistic about. What is that from one of your YouTube polls? No. The facts are legally agreed upon, and what your solicitor or barrister would have done is said, right, if we're going to do this, then we have to find some facts that have not been legally agreed upon, and they have to have been not legally agreed upon at the inquiry. And we can present those, but if you're going to present everything that's been legally agreed upon in the inquiries, like, judgment superseded. So if you're going to want to come in and do this, we need to go and do something else legally elsewhere to appeal the inquiry or some shit. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like, we have to go elsewhere first before we can come to this, because otherwise we're just going to lose. And it's funny that he should stand up in court and say, no, Your Honour, actually, these are not facts that have been legally agreed upon, because 28% of people prefer whiskers.
In fact, 28% of the public say they think the real truth about the Manchester Arena bombing is being kept from the public.
Stupid.
The public inquiry was not a proper legal ruling anyway. He then provided a skeleton of his own research. The judge had been given a bundle of more that he could study outside the court. Viewers of Rich Planet TV will be familiar with this information.
Yeah.
For example, see here.
We've just been looking at it.
Martin Hibbert sat at a bench on the back row. A space had been cleared for his wheelchair. In front of him were two of the claimant's counsel solicitors, and the barrister himself occupied a solo seat on the front row next to Richard and his counsel. I gather there is a reason for this formation because the barrister insisted upon it.
Well, it's probably the way it works, isn't it? The barrister stands at the front. The people who are the claimants and all that don't have to sit there right in front of everyone having been looked at and poked at. They can sit wherever they want. And then the barrister sits at the front, and then the people that are helping them sit behind them and pass them things.
I gather there is a reason for this formation because the barrister insisted upon it.
Professionalism.
Mr. Hibbert himself remained silent throughout. In fact, no witnesses were called at this hearing.
Didn't need any.
His daughter Eve was not present.
Didn't need to be.
Richard spoke with authority and drive. He explained how his evidence has every bit of legal validity and should be presented at the trial. He comprehensively discredited the claimant's counsel's case.
Well, not really, because what you're saying is they weren't there and they didn't get injured. And they said, well, we've got CCTV to prove that we're there, and we've got doctor's records to prove that we were injured. And then the judges looked at them and said, yeah, these are like proper, that's CCTV. The police have said they've used it in the case, in the, that's CCTV. Yeah, okay, we've got that. And then the doctor's stuff, like that's from the hospitals. So that's an official document. Yeah, that's on their hospital records. What do you want?
He comprehensively discredited the claimant's counsel's case. None of his defiance has slipped an inch. There's no doubt he won the performance competition. The judge did not announce a ruling and said he would have to consider for a while. Hopefully Richard should receive a verdict in 2 weeks or less.
It's funny because now we know the verdict is that the judge ruled to throw out Richard's performance. And Richard won the performance competition, but it's not a performance competition like you think it is on telly. It's a legal battle, and it's about legal stuff. So he won the performance competition, but he lost. Well, I'm going to say he lost the case. He doesn't want me to say that, does he? So, but he didn't lose the case. The other people won it then, because he's very angry. He's lodged a complaint with the BBC that they said he lost the case, but they didn't. They said the survivors won. So we're going to say that the survivors won. I'll be careful. Sorry, I'm sorry, Rich, if I'm using the wrong language there by mistake. Win and lose or whatever. It's just normal sort of words. Chill.
Hopefully Richard should receive a verdict in 2 weeks or less. What will that ruling be? Well, obviously I hope it will be in favor of Richard, and in any fair judiciary it would be.
It wasn't.
However, we all know other forces are at work in the establishment. If the judge rules in favor of the claimants, then we can safely say there is no doubt at all that the forces of darkness have marked this proceeding, and they are trying to rig the process beforehand.
It's all Masons, apparently. There's our limit anyway. We can't listen to any more speaking spells. So it follows on to say, anyone can beat the world's best athletes in a marathon if you make a referee break the legs of all the other competitors. Nevertheless, we should hope for the best. Here's an interview about this subject. So there are people that support him, but I feel like he made a bit of a mistake there. He even said himself about, in those videos that we watched, he showed those gruesome pictures, which I'm going to have to, it's annoying for me because I'm going to have to download this, and then I'm going to have to put it on my other computer, and then I'm going to have to blur it out, then I'm going to have to export it, then I'm going to get to upload it. It takes ages. But yeah, he said that he changed his mind about when the pictures were taken and stuff. So if he's changing his mind about that, and there was so many, my big point in that was, he said the reflection in the door was light, you could see behind through the thing. Just the one change, I don't think those pictures are the same. It takes apart so much of what he said. So if that's going to be the case, it seems like everything was pretty shaky. And none of what he presented in his videos seemed that solid anyway. I was able to give reasonable, logical points to say why maybe not. So, yeah, that's Richard D. Hall's legal conspiracy. Well, officially, Manchester Arena attack survivors win case against conspiracy theorists. It says in the BBC there. He's going to be cross about it, but yeah. Put that on YouTube. Tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me what you think in the comments. Let's get one of those. Let's get one of those engagement farms going. I'll ask you a controversial subject, and everyone will have controversial opinions. Let's get that going in the comments. Get your controversies out. Show me your controversies. Yeah.